Chapter 200. When one person made a move, there was naturally a second person. The city gate was immediately thrown into chaos, and all kinds of spiritual lights were flying around. Shi Shang stood a little inside and watched indifferently. Perhaps it was because Shi Shang was the city lord and didn't care about anything, so it was convenient for them to do things. Moreover, she was such a beautiful girl, so the people of Four Corner City took the initiative to protect her. Those with power and status were all at the back. The people who came to Four Corner City were either the vanguard or some small forces, so they weren't a threat at all. The people of Four Corner City quickly suppressed the troublemakers and drove them all out of the city. City Lord, why did we drive them out? After closing the city gate, the burly spiritual supremacy from before came forward and asked Shi Shang. Although it was satisfying to beat them up, it would be difficult to clean up the mess when their main force came. Shi Shang's lips curled into a smile. Just when the man thought she was going to reveal some shocking secret, she only said lightly, "I don't like them." Don't like them. So she drove them out? The new city lord was so capricious. Why are there so many people coming to the city recently? She hadn't been in Four Corner City recently, so when she came back, she found that the city was full of unfamiliar faces. Did they form a group to watch Four Corner City? The burly man was surprised. City Lord, don't you know? Know what? Did something big happen when I wasn't here? The burly man's mouth twitched. How could the City Lord not know about such a big thing? Was she really the City Lord? After organizing his words, the burly man said, "There's something unusual going on in Sunset Forest. Outside, people are saying that a treasure has appeared. These people are all here for it." Treasure? What treasure? In a fantasy world, the appearance of something awesome would immediately cause a commotion and attack from all directions. Then the male and female leads would take the opportunity to make a fortune and finally develop feelings for each other. It was the most important part of a fantasy plot. The burly man was embarrassed and scratched his head. How would I know? We'll have to wait until the treasure appears or we go in to find out. But there are so many people here this time, I'm afraid it's not something simple. City Lord, should we also? The burly man didn't finish his sentence, but Shi Shang understood. Should he get involved? Go ahead if you want. Why are you asking me? I don't care. Shi Shang waved his hand. Guard the city gate and throw out the people in the city. After that, Shi Shang turned around and left. The burly man was speechless again. Why was there something wrong with the city lord's style? When other people became city lords, which one of them didn't flaunt their prowess? She, on the other hand, didn't care about anything and was nowhere to be seen. City Lord, you will be usurped sooner or later like this. Sure enough, ever since the Shi Shang ordered the city gates to be closed, more and more people came, and wave after wave of people came looking for trouble. However, it was not that easy to enter the city. Four Corner City was built on the outskirts of the setting sun forest. Naturally, it had a defensive array formation. Once the array formation was activated, these people would not be able to cause any trouble. Perhaps because there were too many people gathered, some magical beasts from the setting sun forest ran out. At night, there would be ghostly wails and wolf howls outside the city, making one's scalp tingle. City Lord, are you there? Outside the City Lord's mansion, the burly man from before shouted at the top of his lungs, looking slightly anxious. However, after shouting for a long time, there was no response from inside. Is the City Lord not here? It shouldn't be. The City Lord was still in the city when the array formation was activated. If she wanted to go out, we would know. Then why didn't she come out? Why don't we go in and take a look? Although this person's suggestion was a little rash, the burly man still agreed. Although the City Lord's mansion was called a mansion, it was actually a courtyard house. They jumped into it. The courtyard was bare and nothing could be seen except for a room with light. The burly man knocked on the door, but there was still no response. After exchanging a few glances with the others, the burly man tried to push the door open. He found that the door was not locked, so he gently pushed it open. When he saw the room clearly, the burly man felt that he had entered the wrong room. Books were scattered all over the floor. Other than a bed, a table, and a chair, the rest of the room was filled with books. There was even a place to enter the room. He looked down and the corner of his mouth twitched again. What the hell was this? Erotic secrets. The secret history of the flower chamber. What kind of strange and eye-catching things was the city lord reading? Also, where did the city lord get so many books? What are you doing? The burly man quivered and turned around abruptly. He saw a black shadow standing on the courtyard wall. The black shadow jumped down from the courtyard wall and walked into the light. Only then did everyone see who it was. The burly man felt that his worldview was constantly being refreshed. City Lord, why did you climb over the wall? Was the door for decoration? I was too lazy to open the door, Shishang replied. His gaze turned to the door that was pushed open. What are you doing? Too lazy to open the door, so you climbed over the wall? Asterisk flips table asterisk which one was more troublesome? Well, we saw the light in the room and thought that the city lord was in the room. However, no one responded to our calls, so we... The burly man explained. Shishang stared at him for a few seconds. The burly man wanted to find a hole to hide in. Why are you looking for me? Shishang walked towards the room. He kicked away the books that were blocking his way and walked in. The burly man and the others were speechless. The burly man didn't dare to follow him in. He stood at the door and said, "The people outside are working together to break the defensive array. They have many people and we don't know how long the array can last, so... There were already people from the big families here. If they work together to break the array wouldn't last long. They can't come in." Shishang waved his hand. "Go back and sleep. Mind your own business." The burly man was speechless. This wasn't business, City Lord. This concerned the life and death of Four Corner City. If those people entered the city, wouldn't they get even with them? However, Shishang looked impatient. No matter how much the burly man said, Shishang either didn't say a word or told him to go back. In the end, he slammed the door shut. The most willful city lord in the history of Four Corner City was online. Shishang sat on a chair and flipped through a book casually. The title of the book was very normal. The Ancient Times. The words in the book were very small. The author of the book was probably a girl. The words were beautiful and there were illustrations from time to time. The illustrations were of magical beasts. Almost all the ancestors of magical beasts could be found in the book. The first half of the book recorded magical beasts. The second half recorded some unheard of medicinal herbs and forbidden techniques. Shishang flipped to the last page. There were obvious tears. On the left side, there was a forbidden technique called Red Sleeve Attraction. It was a very nice name. However, this forbidden technique was used on men. Only half of the forbidden technique was recorded. The rest had been torn away. According to the way it was recorded, the last page should be the solution to this forbidden technique. But now, it had been torn away. Asterisk tips added. Thank you EE, Pimple, and Soft Girl for your tips. Vote, Cherub. Also, there's a Mid-Autumn Festival event at the top of the book review section. Remember to participate. Chapter 201. Red Sleeve Lure had a very melodramatic origin. To sum it up, it was a bloody case caused by a man. Once upon a time, there was a couple. The husband cheated on the wife one day, and the wife couldn't stop him. She was even tortured half to death by her husband and his mistress. Unwilling to give up, the wife researched for many years until she finally created a forbidden technique. That forbidden technique was called Red Sleeve Lure. Once a man was afflicted with this forbidden technique, he had to drink a woman's blood to relieve himself. And that woman had to be the one who performed the forbidden technique, no one else. In the end, the husband sucked his mistress dry, but still died in the end. Since then, Red Sleeve Lure had been passed down to deal with unfaithful men. But, why was Bu Jingyun afflicted with Red Sleeve Lure? Who did he betray? He didn't need a specific woman's blood either. As long as it was a woman, he could drink it to relieve himself. Shi Sheng felt like she was being splashed by buckets of dog blood. Shi Sheng put the book away. She'd searched for so long, but this was the only useful book she'd found, and the most important part had been torn out. She really wanted to kill someone. Because the city lord was unreliable, the burly man was filled with worry. But he soon discovered that his worries were unnecessary. The attackers under the city walls soon gave up. Because they were being attacked by enemies. They were using their spiritual energy on such a large scale that the magical beasts in Setting Sun Forest couldn't help but rush towards the food. They hadn't even entered Setting Sun Forest, but they'd already lost so many people. These people hated Four Corner City and Shen Yaoguang to the core. By the time everyone had arrived and entered Sunset Forest, the majority of the people, except for those who had arrived at the end, looked as if they had been ravaged excessively. Qin Langyue had met male supporting character N, the young master of a certain mercenary group, so she'd had a much better time than the others. The large group entered Setting Sun Forest in batches. Because they didn't know the exact location of the treasure, they all went in different directions. Qin Langyue had initially followed the mercenary group, but they'd been separated after encountering a wolf pack. Even Jiang Mu wasn't by her side. The one who followed her was Shi Sheng. Don't ask Shi Sheng why she was with the female lead. The female supporting character and the female lead were true love. If they weren't together, they'd be struck by lightning. Even if she managed to avoid Qin Langyue, she'd still run into all sorts of accidents. Give a thumbs up to the powerful plotline. At this moment, Shi Sheng looked rather relaxed while Qin Langyue was in a rather sorry state. There was a small stream between the two of them, its water gushing into the distance. Shi Sheng didn't move, so Qin Langyue didn't either. She just stared at her warily. Shi Sheng felt his eyes ache. He rolled his eyes and suddenly looked behind him. The forest receded. Qin Langyue heaved a sigh of relief as she watched her figure disappear into the bushes. Ever since she entered the forest, she had been constantly on the move. She didn't even have a chance to catch her breath. Meeting Shen Yaoguang here was beyond her expectations. She had a bad feeling about this woman, so her first reaction when she met her was to be on guard. Qin Langyue waited for a while to make sure the Shi Sheng was gone, then walked over to the stream to tidy herself up. The stream water was very clear. When she saw the water, she realized that she had not washed herself for many days. She walked upstream for a while. After making sure there was no one around, she took off her clothes and went into the stream to take a comfortable bath. Just as she was getting comfortable, a sound suddenly came from the forest opposite her. It was the rustling of leaves. She tensed up and reached out to pick up her clothes. Just as she touched them, a gale wolf leapt out of the forest. It had a majestic body, ferocious eyes, and sharp fangs. After the first gale wolf leapt out, it was followed by a second, then a third. Qin Langyue froze in place. She had just experienced the might of these gale wolves. They lived in packs, moved very quickly, and were very united. They were extremely intelligent magical beasts. Qin Langyue didn't move, and neither did the pack of wolves. The wolf that leapt out first was obviously much larger than the rest. The other wolves also treated it with obvious respect. This was the king of the pack. The wolf king's green eyes moved, as if it didn't understand why the person it was chasing had changed. But humans were all shameless creatures. An ominous glint flashed in the wolf king's eyes. With a low growl, the surrounding wolves immediately pounced on Qin Langyue. Qin Langyue's heart was in her throat. As soon as the wolves moved, she grabbed her clothes and put them on, then jumped onto the shore and ran towards the forest. The Wolf King roared in anger, and all the other wolves chased after her like lightning. There were no roads in Setting Sun Forest, so Qin Langyue was at a disadvantage as a human running through the forest. It didn't take long for her to be surrounded by the wolves. Qin Langyue's body was bare, so the cold wind blew into her body. Goosebumps covered her body, and she couldn't help but shiver when she was being stared at by so many wolves. Am I going to die here today? My contract beast had already fallen into a deep slumber to help me, so no matter how I call out to it, it's useless. As more and more wolves gathered, Qin Langyue gritted her teeth and took out her weapon to attack. I can't die here. Other transmigrators can do well, so why can't I? I can't die here. However, Qin Langyue underestimated the might of the Gale wolves. With so many of them, even if she killed them one by one, she'd still get tired. Qin Langyue's stamina gradually weakened. She had pills to recover her spiritual energy, but she didn't have any to recover her physical strength. The Wolf King saw an opportunity and pounced on her, sinking its jaws into her neck. Qin Langyue fell to the ground, her clothes falling apart to reveal her fair and delicate body. The Wolf King bit Qin Langyue viciously, and she fainted before she could retaliate. When she woke up again, she found herself lying naked on a stone bed. The pain from her lower body and the bruises on her body made Qin Langyue feel as if she'd been struck by lightning. I lost my virginity? And it's very likely a wolf at that? Qin Langyue felt disgusted just thinking about it, so she threw up beside the bed. I was actually done by a wolf. Qin Langyue felt like she was covered in filth. She wanted nothing more than to kill the Wolf King right now. After luring the wolves away, Shisheng followed the pack to watch the show. He saw the Wolf King originally planning to kill Qin Langyue, but when her fair body was revealed, it actually changed its mind and decided to just knock her unconscious and bring her back. Shisheng felt so stifled that he started scratching his head in anger. I told you to kill her, not to find a wife for you. What's the point of bringing her back? You're a wolf, don't you know that? Even if you're a Wolf King who can only transform, you're still a wolf. There's no good ending between humans and beasts. Shisheng almost couldn't resist taking out a small ball and blowing up the den of these stupid wolves. Asterisk, please recommend me. Please recommend me. Chapter 202. Before Bu Jingyun could let go of Shisheng grabbed his arm and tightened her grip. With a flip, he was pinned beneath her. Shisheng's fingers were still around his neck as he leaned over and looked down at her. He could see his own reflection in her eyes. Bu Jingyun, you've grown bolder, haven't you? Do you know what you're doing? You're acting like a pervert. Do you think I won't kill you? Bu Jingyun. Humph, this noble one didn't act like a pervert to anyone but you. You don't know how to be romantic at all. Look at me. What are you feeling guilty about? Shisheng forced Bu Jingyun to look at him. Bu Jingyun snorted unhappily. This noble one isn't feeling guilty. Shisheng resisted the urge to hack him to death and released him. However, he was still sitting on top of Bu Jingyun. Why are you here? Is there anywhere in this continent that this noble one can't go? Bu Jingyun replied coldly, but his eyes kept darting back and forth between Shisheng and Shisheng. She really does care about me. What a hypocrite. Shisheng rolled his eyes at him. Are you going to hell or not? Isn't this guy an otaku? Why does he keep running outside? What's the point of running? Can't he just obediently wait for this precious one to marry him? Bu Jingyun. Shisheng suddenly reached out and grabbed Bu Jingyun's collar. His other hand moved to Bu Jingyun's waist and quickly unbuckled his belt. Shisheng swiftly stripped off his outer red robes. Bu Jingyun wanted to save him, but it was too late. He could only watch as his beloved red robes were violently cut to pieces by Shisheng. Shan Yaoguang, what did you do to the Hall Master? The enforcer's voice suddenly rang out from behind. He looked at the shredded robes on the ground, then at the lifeless body of his Hall Master. His mind was filled with images of Shisheng forcibly taking possession of his Hall Master. The anger in his chest rose rapidly. This which actually dared to treat his Hall Master like this. This was simply unbearable. What could I have done to him? Shisheng looked at the enforcer in confusion. Firstly, she didn't hit him, and secondly, she didn't scold him. She only took off his clothes. Was there a need to be so agitated? She had been taken advantage of. What had she said? What a fuss. Shan Yaoguang, go back. Bu Jingyun stood up from the ground and stared coldly at the enforcer. Protect her. Palace Master, you can't treat them differently. Why was he so cold and aloof every time she saw him? He refused to accept it. He couldn't even compare to a woman he had only known for a few months. Due to Bu Jingyun's pressure, the enforcer had no choice but to return to the group with an expression that said, "My hall master has been defiled, and my hall master is siding with an outsider. I feel like I've fallen out of favor." Shi Shang jumped back onto the tree. Bu Jingyun followed suit, but Shi Shang did not chase him away. She did not mention a single word about what had just happened. It was as if this was a very normal thing to her. As Bu Jingyun's thoughts ran wild, the sky gradually darkened. When he looked at the lotus again at night, it emitted a lustrous light and was exceptionally beautiful. When the moon rose to the middle of the sky, the budding rainbow lotus bloomed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Roar! It's blooming! It's blooming! The voices of humans and magical beasts rang out at the same time. Black figures rushed from both sides of the lake to the center. The rainbow lotus bloomed for a very short period of time. Normally, it would only bloom for 5 minutes. If it was not plucked in 5 minutes, the petals of the rainbow lotus would wither and begin to bear fruit. What could one do in 5 minutes? One could eat a bowl of instant noodles in 5 minutes, play a round of games, and have intimate contact with the five-fingered girl once. It seemed like a very long time, and there was plenty of time. But at this moment, it seemed like this amount of time was simply not enough. Humans did not want magical beasts to obtain it, and magical beasts naturally did not want humans to obtain it either. Moreover, the magical beast army had wings and could fly. Although humans could fly as spirit emperors, it consumed a lot of spiritual energy. It was not as useful as magical beasts. They would be able to slap you down with 2 claws. You want the rainbow lotus? Shi Shang, who was enjoying the show, suddenly turned to Bu Jingyun and asked. She saw the people from 9 Silences Hall trying to take advantage of the situation and snatch the rainbow lotus. No. Bu Jingyun subconsciously shook his head, but before he could finish, he immediately turned around and said, "Yes." "What's so good about that thing?" Shi Shang muttered with a frown, then took out his iron sword and said, "Wait here, I'll snatch it back for you." Bu Jingyun. Wait, shouldn't I be the one saying that? Wait. Shi Shang did not listen to him at all and immediately dashed out. Shi Shang was very fast. Taking advantage of the fact that those people were busy dealing with the magical beasts, he reached the rainbow lotus. She was just about to reach out and pluck it when a pair of white claws suddenly appeared beside her, grabbing the rainbow lotus and uprooting it. The sound of splashing water attracted everyone's attention, be it humans or magical beasts. Shi Shang looked in the direction of the claws, his temples throbbing uncontrollably. Female lead Sama, you really are all-pervasive. Qin Langyue gave Shi Shang a smug look, then scurried towards the shore. Then, a strange phenomenon occurred. Several silver tentacles suddenly shot out from the calm surface of the water, wrapping around Qin Langyue's calves and pulling her back. A treasure like this would definitely have something protecting it, either an abnormally ferocious magical beast or some kind of plant. At this moment, the silver tentacles that stretched out looked more like a plant. Shi Shang chopped off the tentacles that were reaching for him, then dashed towards Qin Langyue, seizing the opportunity to snatch the rainbow lotus from her. A cold smile appeared on Qin Langyue's face, and the rainbow lotus suddenly disappeared. Several more tentacles shot out from the water, reaching for Shi Shang like lightning. Shi Shang was forced to put some distance between himself and Qin Langyue. At this moment, the surface of the water was filled with silver tentacles. Magical beasts immediately retreated from the tentacles' attack range, but those who were slower were not so lucky and were directly dragged into the water. With a few splashes, black shadows spread across the surface of the water, filling the air with the stench of blood. Qin Langyue was entangled by the tentacles. Just as she was about to be dragged into the water, a large snake flew over from the shore and bit down on the tentacles, causing them to shrink back into the water in pain. The large snake coiled its tail around Qin Langyue, knocking aside the tentacles that were reaching for it, then quickly scuttled back to the shore. Shi Shang chopped off a few tentacles and was one step behind Qin Langyue. In the end, As soon as she arrived, she heard Qin Longyue's voice. Shen Yaoguang stole it. The tentacles were still waving wildly on the surface of the lake. Those who were caught screamed for help, but they would be dragged back into the lake in the next second. No one could save them. The dense mass of tentacles made it impossible to see what was happening in the middle. The ones closest to the Rainbow Lotus just now were Shi Shang and Qin Langyue. Now that the Rainbow Lotus had disappeared, there were only two possibilities. If it wasn't on Qin Langyue, then it was on her. Qin Langyue had framed her, so she was definitely going to take the blame. Who told me to be a professional villain? What else could I do other than take the blame? Female lead, you're really something. Asterisk, please don't take the blame. Please vote, 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 Cherub. Please remember to participate in the Mid-Autumn Festival. Chapter 203. Thus, the moment Shi Shang landed on the ground, a group of people quickly surrounded him. Shen Yaoguang, hand over the Rainbow Lotus. Shi Shang swung his iron sword as he looked at Qin Langyue, who was standing in the middle of the crowd and being hugged by a handsome man with a slightly sinister aura. His heart raced wildly. The Snake King actually bowed down to the female lead. This is simply a disgrace to the world of magical beasts. Shi Shang didn't have the slightest desire to explain himself. These people were all acting like, I'm not listening to you, I'm not listening to you, you're lying to me. What's the point of explaining? Thus, he gave the female lead a meaningful look, then looked at the people around him. He dragged out his voice and asked in a strange tone, You want the Rainbow Lotus? Nonsense. Hand over the Rainbow Lotus. It's not impossible. Shi Shang ignored that person and his eyes curved into crescents. How about exchanging it with Qin Langyue? Qin Langyue was still feeling pleased with herself, but when she heard Shi Shang's words, her heart skipped a beat as a bad premonition arose in her heart. Qin Langyue? What do you want her for? Someone asked in confusion. These two don't seem to have any grudges. That's none of your business. You guys have time to think it over. Give me Qin Langyue in exchange for the Rainbow Lotus, or I'll destroy it. Shi Shang spoke with conviction, as if the Rainbow Lotus was really in her hands. Don't even think about it. I can destroy it much faster than you can. Shi Shang's words dispelled the thoughts of those who wanted to snatch the Rainbow Lotus. Shen Yaoguang was still strong. If she really wanted to destroy the Rainbow Lotus, they definitely wouldn't be able to stop her. How do we know the Rainbow Lotus is really in your hands? Show it to us, some idiot suddenly said. Shi Shang laughed out loud. Are you guys here to make fun of me? Weren't you the ones who said the Rainbow Lotus was in my hands? Are you kidding me, or are you kidding yourselves? Has your IQ been fed to the dogs? Shi Shang smiled faintly. Since you suspect I don't have the Rainbow Lotus, then let me go. Shen Yaoguang, stop trying to confuse us. The Rainbow Lotus is definitely on her. The first sentence was directed at Shi Shang, while the second sentence was directed at the others. The person who asked such a stupid question was beaten twice by the people beside him. That person didn't dare to make a sound. The scene quieted down, and only the sound of water could be heard from the distant lake. The tentacles seemed to be unable to leave the water. They also had a length, and could only reach a distance of 1 or 2 meters from the shore. Therefore, at this moment, those tentacles were like crazily growing hair, dancing wildly on the surface of the lake, looking rather strange. The demonic beast on the other side seemed to be afraid of these tentacles. It didn't come over and just watched. Everyone looked at each other for a few seconds, then quickly started discussing amongst themselves. However, Qin Langyue had already been detained, so the outcome was obvious. 1 petal of the Rainbow Lotus was equivalent to a martial sage. It was worth it to exchange a woman for it. Those people pretended to discuss amongst themselves for a while before finally looking at Qin Langyue. Qin Langyue tried her best to remain calm, but the fury in her eyes still poured out. She wanted to scheme against Shen Yaoguang, but she didn't expect Shen Yaoguang to scheme against her instead. However, she couldn't say that she didn't have the Rainbow Lotus on her. She had no choice but to fight her way out. "Who dares to touch my woman?" The Snake King suddenly shielded Shen Yaoguang behind him, his tone tyrannical. The Snake King, who could transform, had a cultivation that was at least on par with a human martial sage. When the pressure from his body swept out, those with lower cultivations felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them. Their legs went weak, and they wanted to kneel down. However, there were quite a few martial sages here. If they really fought, the Snake King wouldn't be their match. Therefore, these people weren't scared off by the Snake King. Instead, they glared at Qin Langyue with disgust. "You're actually together with a demonic beast? Qin Langyue, I didn't know you had such a heavy taste." Even if he can transform, he's still a demonic beast. Qin Langyue's killing intent overflowed as she listened to those people speak more and more outrageously. "I was forced to be with the Snake King. That's right, it's all Shen Yaoguang's fault." She'd asked the Snake King, and he'd said that someone lured him out, which was why he went to fight with the Wolf King. Coupled with her encounter with the Wolf King, it was obvious that Shen Yaoguang had set her up. She looked at Shi Shang with eyes filled with cold light. Shi Shang's lips curled up in response to her with an infuriating smile. That smile was extremely dazzling in Qin Langyue's eyes, as if mocking her stupidity. "Are you guys done? Motherfucker, don't you know that villains die from talking too much? Look at the female lead's eyes. Believe it or not, when her cheat comes online, she'll beat all of you up. A bunch of idiots." Their expressions changed, but no one dared to retort Shi Shang. Someone began to attack the Snake King, luring him to the side. Qin Langyue was surrounded by several people. Without her cheat, she had nothing to fear other than her own strength. This was the downside of a growth-type female lead. If you really met a villain who didn't follow the script, they could kill you in a matter of minutes. How could they let you be so arrogant until the end? The Snake King and Qin Langyue were captured one after the other and brought to Shi Shang. "Cripple her cultivation." Shi Shang pointed at a random person. "Shen Yaoguang, you didn't say that just now." Shi Shang shrugged nonchalantly. "Then can I add it now? Do you want the rainbow lotus or not?" That person glared at Shi Shang, then ordered someone to cripple Qin Langyue's cultivation. "Shen Yaoguang, I have no enmity with you. Why are you doing this to me?" Qin Langyue was really scared now. She knew what she would face after her cultivation was crippled. So she had to stall for time, wait for her contracted beast to wake up. Shi Shang didn't even bat an eyelid. He tapped the air with his finger and urged, "Hurry up, can you give birth to a baby if you dawdle?" That person glared at Shi Shang angrily, but still sped up and walked to Qin Langyue's side. "Shen Yaoguang, even if I'm going to die, at least explain why you're targeting me." Qin Langyue cried out anxiously. "I didn't ask you to die, so what's there to be confused about? Don't make it sound so serious." Shi Shang smiled, then turned his head, his expression savage again. "Why aren't you doing anything? Don't you know how to cripple someone's cultivation? Don't make it sound so serious. Crippling someone's cultivation is worse than death, okay?" This woman actually said it wasn't serious. Qin Langyue wanted to say something, but that person had already placed his palm on top of her head. A surge of spiritual energy entered her body through her Bai Hui acupoint. The sudden surge of spiritual energy from the outside world wreaked havoc in her body, violently destroying her meridians. The sound of her meridians breaking rang in her ears, and a wave of pain washed over her. "Ah!" Qin Langyue couldn't bear the pain and screamed in agony. Her voice was exceptionally miserable, causing one's scalp to go numb. Asterisk tipping. Asking for votes, touch you guys. Chapter 204. Enough. Shen Yaoguang, hand over the rainbow lotus. As soon as the person who crippled Qin Langyue stopped, someone immediately shouted at Shi Shang. Now that Qin Langyue's cultivation had been crippled, the group of people who wanted the rainbow lotus immediately grew excited. Their gazes towards Shi Shang became scorching hot. A martial sage, ah, how tempting. Shi Shang's lips curled into a mocking smile. I don't have the rainbow lotus. She didn't admit that she had the stupid rainbow lotus just now. Were these people's brains eaten by pigs? Qin Langyue said she had it, so it's really with her. Idiots. Shen Yaoguang, what do you mean by this? Hurry up and hand over the rainbow lotus. Don't stall for time. We have so many people here. Even if you want to renege on your debt, we'll see if you have the strength to do so. Don't you understand? I said, I don't have the rainbow lotus. Shi Shang spoke very slowly so that everyone present could hear him. We've already fulfilled your request. Shen Yaoguang, don't even think about reneging on your debt. Hand over the rainbow lotus, or else you'll end up like her. A tall man pointed at Qin Langyue with a vicious expression. Shen Yaoguang, don't test our patience. Hurry up and hand over the rainbow lotus. Hurry up and hand it over. Hurry up. One by one, they shouted very happily. Shi Shang ignored them and walked over to Qin Langyue's side. The people there were looking at her nervously, ready to attack at any moment. Shi Shang didn't mind. He squatted down and grabbed Qin Langyue's wrist. Shen Yaoguang. Qin Langyue raised her head with great difficulty. Her eyes were bloodshot, making her look a little terrifying. She was gnashing her teeth so ferociously that she looked like a malicious spirit. She really crippled my cultivation. I'm going to kill her. HM? Shi Shang's fingertips caressed her wrist. When he heard Qin Langyue call out to him, he turned to look at her. I won't let you off. Qin Langyue spat out these words through gritted teeth. Oh. Shi Shang retracted his gaze. Qin Langyue's expression immediately changed. You, Shen Yaoguang, why were you? What? What are you trying to do? Qin Langyue wanted to break free, but with her current strength, she was no match for Shi Shang. Take some interest. Daring to frame me, do you think I'm a saint? Do you think I'm going to let it go? No. A trace of fear finally appeared in Qin Langyue's eyes. She fumbled around her wrist, clearly looking for a spatial bracelet. How did she know about this? She had never used it in front of anyone, nor had she told anyone about it. How would she know? Shen Yaoguang, what are you playing at? Hurry up and hand over the rainbow lotus. The person on the other side was getting impatient. Shi Shang didn't answer him. He pinched an invisible hard object with his fingertips and injected Reiki into it. Qin Langyue was currently heavily injured and in her weakest state, so it would be easy for her to erase the contract between the bracelet and Qin Langyue. Sure enough, a simple and unadorned bracelet soon appeared on Qin Langyue's wrist. Don't. Shi Shang took off the bracelet. This world was set to be an uninhabited spatial bracelet, so anyone could enter it. After finding the rainbow lotus, Shi Shang returned the bracelet to Qin Langyue. Qin Langyue found a box for the rainbow lotus, saving Shi Shang the trouble of finding something to store it in. Once she got the rainbow lotus, she dashed off into the distance. Her movements were so sudden and swift that the people on the other side didn't even have time to react. Shen Yaoguang. The group of people behind her yelled and chased after her, but they didn't realize that Shi Shang was actually leading them towards the magical beasts. By the time they realized, it was already too late. Magical beasts didn't have a good impression of humans. Rushing over like this was undoubtedly a form of provocation, so how could the magical beasts let them do as they pleased? After shaking off the group of people, Shi Shang circled back to where Bu Jingyun was. Bu Jingyun and the people from Nine Silences Hall were all there. When they saw Shi Shang coming over, they all went on guard. Shi Shang tossed the box containing the rainbow lotus to Bu Jingyun, his face full of disdain. Here. I really don't know what you're doing with this, Mary Sue. Bu Jingyun held the box, the corner of his mouth twitching. She really managed to snatch it from so many people? That look of disdain on his face would make the people outside go crazy with anger. What's a Mary Sue? I don't know, but it sounds really high and mighty. Also, I sent people to snatch the rainbow lotus because I saw her guarding this place. I thought she wanted it, so I wanted to snatch it and give it to her. In the end, she wasn't guarding this place for the Rainbow Lotus at all. How am I supposed to give it to her now? Bu Jingyun could only silently accept the box. The enforcer was also a little dumbfounded. This seductress doesn't seem to treat the hall master that badly. She can even snatch something like this and give it to the hall master. Where are we going now? Bu Jingyun put the Rainbow Lotus away, then turned to ask Shi Sheng. Shi Sheng smoothed out his wrinkled robes, his gaze calm as he stared into the depths of the forest. To fight. Bu Jingyun. Can't you do anything else besides fight? So violent, no wonder no one wants her. She wants to force a marriage, humph. Only I'm kind enough to allow her to force a marriage. If it were anyone else, they would have beaten her to death long ago. Shi Shang stirred up a mess, but he calmly withdrew himself and headed deeper into the forest. Bu Jingyun didn't bring his troops, only the enforcer. The deeper they went, the higher the level of the demonic beasts they encountered. The enforcer was a little worried. Hall Master, it's not safe for us to continue like this. For the past few days, he'd watched that woman wander aimlessly forward. Although he didn't have to do anything when encountering demonic beasts, the demonic beasts they encountered today would be difficult to deal with. He didn't know what was wrong with the Hall Master. Why did he insist on following her? She won't let anything happen to me. Bu Jingyun looked at the slender figure in front of him, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. If this was a girl saying this, it wouldn't be a problem at all. But now, it was a man saying it, and it was the wise and mighty Hall Master in his heart. The enforcer could feel the lofty image of the Hall Master crumbling in his heart. Hall Master, you're not acting right. You should go back first. Ah, were they talking about this just now? How can I do that? The enforcer immediately shook his head. I must stay by your side. As enforcer, his job was to protect the Hall Master. Bu Jingyun glanced at him coldly, then said coldly, I don't want to repeat myself a third time. Go back. The enforcer. How can I be at ease leaving you in the hands of such a demonic woman? Bu Jingyun's gaze turned even colder. The enforcer immediately cowered and said sullenly, Yes. Bu Jingyun caught up with Shi Shang in a few steps, and the two figures gradually disappeared, swallowed up by the tall weeds. The enforcer scratched his head. What about the Hall Master's safety? This is so urgent. In the end, the enforcer quietly followed. In any case, he didn't feel safe leaving the Hall Master alone with that demonic woman. Shan Yaoguang only knew how to bully the Hall Master. * gift plus update. Please vote. Chapter 205. Shi Shang didn't continue forward. Instead, he took a detour and arrived at a cliff. On the opposite side of the cliff, there was a bright red plant. Its rhizome was very delicate, with only 2 leaves. However, there was a very large flower blooming on it. It swayed and bloomed brilliantly, making people wonder if the delicate rhizome could bear its weight. Bu Jingyun's expression changed when he saw the plant. His gaze on Shi Shang deepened. Shi Shang was about to go over when Bu Jingyun pulled her back. Placing his palm on her waist, he pulled her into his embrace. The two were so close that they could hear each other's heartbeats. Are you crazy? Shi Shang glared at him. Let go. Bu Jingyun pursed his lips and lowered his voice. You. Where did you find out about this? What do you mean, where did I find out about this? Shi Shang rolled his eyes. Jie-yun flower. What does that have to do with you? Shi Shang frowned. Shan Yaoguang, Bu Jingyun called out to her in a low voice, a complicated look in his eyes. You know what I'm talking about. Couldn't she just tell him the truth? The Jie-yun flower was one of the ingredients to remove the temptation of red sleeves. He didn't believe that she'd found it by coincidence. Shi Shang pressed his hands against Bu Jingyun's chest and leaned back slightly. It's not that you haven't found a way to remove the seal on your body after all these years. You just haven't found what you need. I've already given you the Medicine King Cauldron, and I'll find the rest for you. You just need to marry me after the seal is removed. Even if a man could suppress the effects of the temptation of red sleeves with fresh blood, he wouldn't live for long. She didn't know how Bu Jingyun had managed to live for so long, but the price he'd paid for it was definitely not simple. Bu Jingyun stared blankly at the girl in his arms. She spoke so matter-of-factly and confidently. What right did she have? But damn it, he liked this side of her. Bu Jingyun's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly lowered his head and pressed his warm lips against Shi Shang's. Shi Shang's first reaction was to evade, but Bu Jingyun's strength had suddenly increased, as if he had eaten Popeye's spinach. He couldn't break free from Bu Jingyun's grip. He almost suppressed his Shi Shang and kissed her for a while. Just as Shi Shang was about to take out his iron sword to slash him, Fu Ling let go of Shi Shang as if he had a good idea. Shi Shang slapped him on the head. Bu Jingyun, are you addicted to acting like a pervert? That mother**** kissed her whenever he didn't like it. Kiss your grandpa. Humph. Hey, you kissed and I didn't even settle the score with you. You still have the nerve to be so arrogant? Turn your face around. F***ck, you're still running. The two of them messed around for a while before Shi Shang went to pick the Jieyun flower. Bu Jingyun didn't want to go to the toilet at first, but Shi Shang slapped him to the ground. The Jieyun flower wasn't precious, but it was very rare. It grew on cliffs, so it was basically impossible to buy this kind of Jieyun flower, which was useless to ordinary people. Since it wasn't precious, it meant that it wasn't guarded by any magical beasts. Shi Shang easily obtained the Jieyun flower. However, just as she was about to turn back, several black figures suddenly rushed out from the bottom of the cliff. They were huge and covered in black feathers. With a flap of their wings, they created a strong wind that almost knocked Shi Shang off his iron sword. Shi Shang steadied himself, and only then did he get a good look at them. They were black eagles. Black eagles were a type of magical beast, but they were very large. With a wingspan of more than 10 meters, they could blot out the sun. 4 black eagles circled Shi Shang, and 2 of them swooped down ferociously toward her, while the other 2 rushed toward Bu Jingyun. Black eagles were tough creatures, and they could fly. They were much more difficult to deal with than those on the ground. When the enforcer saw the black eagles rushing over, he immediately jumped out to protect Bu Jingyun behind him. The black eagles used their wings to create a strong wind, and then took the opportunity to attack. The 2 of them even knew how to cooperate. Even Shi Shang was a little flustered by these creatures. He could only dodge, and couldn't attack. The enforcer had to protect Bu Jingyun, and he was soon wounded. He was sent flying by one of the black eagles, but the other one suddenly swooped toward Bu Jingyun. Its sharp claws grabbed Bu Jingyun's shoulder, and with a flap of its wings, it flew into the air. Hall Master! The enforcer's cry of surprise attracted Shi Shang's attention. At the edge of the cliff, Bu Jingyun was caught by a black eagle and lifted into the air. Shi Shang frowned. This guy had always been a good-for-nothing. Even now, he didn't fight back. The enforcer waved away the black eagle that had been pestering him, and rushed toward the black eagle that had caught Bu Jingyun, saving him. Hall Master! The enforcer's face was full of anxiety. Bu Jingyun's face was pale, and he was on the verge of collapsing. The enforcer suddenly realized that something was wrong. He looked at Bu Jingyun's back and saw that it was a bloody mess. Hall Master! How did he get so badly injured? The enforcer didn't have time to think about it. The black eagles in the sky started attacking again. He carried Bu Jingyun and dashed toward the forest in the distance. The terrain here was open and suitable for the black eagles to attack. Once they entered the forest, it wouldn't be so easy. Shi Shang followed closely behind. These things were too fast. She couldn't even throw a small ball, let alone hit them. It was so infuriating. Once they entered the forest, the black eagles made a lot of noise in the canopy. However, the trees were too dense, and they couldn't see their target. After a while, they stopped attacking. The enforcer took Bu Jingyun to hide under a large tree. Shi Shang stood a little further away from them. Let's go. Shi Shang watched the black eagles fly away before he walked up to Bu Jingyun. What happened to him? The enforcer glared at Shi Shang. You still have the nerve to ask? If it weren't for you, Hall Master wouldn't have been injured. Shi Shang. What are you talking about? Who knew that he was such a good-for-nothing? He's the villain, okay? Didn't you say that he was injured? Is his injury still not healed? It's all your fault, the enforcer continued. Ever since he met you, Hall Master has been plagued with bad luck. Shen Yaoguang, you're a jinx. The enforcer was also furious. In the past, Hall Master never left Nine Silences Hall. How could he have encountered such things? Even if their Hall Master was a good-for-nothing, he was still a high and mighty Hall Master that they were willing to serve. It was only later that Shi Shang found out that Bu Jingyun was basically a good-for-nothing if he didn't suck human souls. The first time they met, he sucked the souls out of the two corpses. However, every time he sucked human souls, the consequences would be even more painful. Therefore, the people of Nine Silences Hall had always been on guard against Bu Jingyun from sucking human souls. The injury he mentioned before was also the consequence of sucking human souls. As for this damned setting, Shi Shang just wanted to chuckle and curse the author's entire family. He's the villain, hey? What's the point of giving him such a damned skill? This weak and delicate villain. Damn. Asterisk pleading for votes la 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 la. Are you guys really not going to vote for me after seeing me roll around and act cute? Chapter 206. Bu Jingyun's body was really weak. Just a few scratches and he'd fainted for half a day. Although the enforcer had insulted Shi Shang, he didn't restrict her movements at all. Although he hadn't heard their conversation, he'd seen the Jie Yun flower. That was what the Hall Master wanted them to find. This woman's words are too harsh. The two of them brought Bu Jingyun out of Setting Sun Forest. By the time they reached Four Corner City, Bu Jingyun's injuries had more or less healed. After those people retreated, Four Corner City was attacked in retaliation. Fortunately, the defensive formation was strong enough and those people weren't united enough, so they left on bad terms. Qin Langyue was the reason they weren't united. Shi Shang had forcefully revealed her space bracelet. Anything that belonged to the female lead was bound to be rare. Space items in the 9 provinces were the rarest of the rarest, so those people definitely wouldn't let go of her space bracelet. The Rainbow Lotus was already gone, so if they couldn't even get a space bracelet, wouldn't their trip have been in vain? For the sake of the space bracelet, another round of fighting ensued. Qin Langyue's contracted beast woke up and ran away with her, taking with it Jiang Mu, who was still protecting her despite knowing her cultivation was crippled. Langyue, eat something. Jiang Mu placed some fruits beside Qin Langyue, a hint of worry in his cold and hard expression. Qin Langyue's eyes were empty as she lay on the ground, replying mechanically, "No. If you don't eat, your body won't be able to take it." Qin Langyue suddenly sat up and yelled hysterically, "I said I won't eat. I won't eat. Don't you understand? Scram. I don't want to see you." Jiang Mu was stunned by her yelling. After a while he said, "But, Scram, Scram." Qin Langyue pushed Jiang Mu away. "Scram, Scram." The worry in Jiang Mu's eyes deepened, but in order not to agitate Qin Langyue, he still retreated. As soon as Jiang Mu left, Qin Langyue covered her face and started sobbing. Without her cultivation, she was no different from a cripple. Her mood was unpredictable. Even though she knew Jiang Mu was doing this for her own good, she still couldn't help but throw tantrums. "Master, there's still a chance to recover your strength." Jiang Mu's contracted beast's voice slowly rang in her mind. Qin Langyue abruptly raised her head, her bloodshot eyes filled with malevolence. What method? She wanted to recover her cultivation and take revenge on Shen Yaoguang. As an assassin in her past life, Qin Langyue's temperament had always been more resolute than the average person's. However, no matter how resolute a person's temperament was, when faced with a series of setbacks, they would become so weak that they couldn't even withstand a single blow. The contracted beast fell silent for a while. Qin Langyue urged him with a sinister look in her eyes, Tell me, what's the plan? I don't want to be a cripple. Master, do you really want to recover? Even if you have to lose something? The contract beast didn't answer the question, but asked in a low voice. When it contracted with her, she was clearly not such a person. Now, its master made it a little afraid. Yes, I want to recover. I don't care what I lose, Qin Langyue replied quickly. She wanted to take revenge on Shen Yaoguang. After a long while, the contract beast replied, Yes, I will definitely help Master recover. Qin Langyue was impatient. She kept asking him, but her contract beast didn't say anything. He just told her to wait patiently. That night, Qin Langyue had a dream. In her dream, there was a boy looking at her with a face full of sorrow. His gaze made her feel extremely uncomfortable, as if she had done something wrong to him. She woke up with a start. Light shone in from outside. She covered her face with her hands, but her rough skin gave her a fright. She touched her face a few times in a panic. Her smooth skin was gone, replaced by deep wrinkles. She raised her hands in front of her. Her tender fingers were now as withered as tree branches, covered with wrinkles that resembled tree bark. How could this be? No, this must be a dream. Qin Langyue comforted herself, then lay back down and closed her eyes. This must be a dream. A dream. Ah! A mournful scream resounded through the night. Jiang Mu, who was guarding outside, immediately rushed in. Langyue, what's wrong? Qin Langyue hugged her head and mumbled, Don't come here. Get out, get out. Langyue. How could Jiang Mu be at ease? He walked over and grabbed Qin Langyue, trying to lift her head. Langyue, don't be afraid. I'll protect you from now on. You still have me. No, go away, don't touch me, don't. No one will like me when I'm like this. They're all liars. Listen to me, I really... Jiang Mu's voice trailed off. His body stiffened, the disbelief on his face concealed by the darkness. His body slowly fell to the ground, gurgling sounds coming from his throat, but no words came out. Qin Langyue was also shocked. After a long while, she raised her hands. Her cultivation has recovered? And it's even stronger than before. My cultivation has recovered. It's recovered. Ha ha ha, it's recovered. Qin Langyue seemed to have gone mad. She didn't even look at Jiang Mu, who was lying on the ground, gradually losing his breath. But soon, Qin Langyue discovered that even though she had recovered her cultivation, the skin on her face and hands was still the same. She scratched at the wrinkles with all her might, causing blood to flow out. How can this be? I've clearly recovered my cultivation, so why is it still like this? That's right. My contracted beast. He's the one who helped me recover my cultivation, so he must know what happened to me. Qin Langyue called out to her contracted beast in her heart, but no matter how much she called out, no one answered her. She couldn't even feel the connection between her and her contracted beast. Even though her contracted beast had fallen into a deep slumber, she could still feel the connection between them. Although she was puzzled, she quickly pushed it to the back of her mind. Qin Langyue had sex with the Snake King before, so she was pregnant with his child. With her cultivation crippled, the child had no spiritual energy to nourish it, so it could only absorb the nutrients from her body. Her contracted beast had gathered all of his energy to help Qin Langyue recover her cultivation. His energy was too pure, so the child couldn't bear it. Thus, it had desperately absorbed the nutrients from Qin Langyue's body to protect itself and provide the nutrients it needed in the future. Thus, even though Qin Langyue had recovered her cultivation, she couldn't recover her appearance. Qin Langyue tried many methods, but none of them worked. In the end, she could only wrap herself in a black robe and cover herself up tightly. The strange gazes and whispers outside made Qin Langyue feel very uncomfortable. Sometimes, she even wanted to kill those people. Instead of seeking revenge on Shi Shang, she returned to Nine States Academy to look for Zhongxi. She wanted to become even stronger. If she could obtain the Medicine King's cauldron, that would be even better. Unfortunately, she hadn't seen that man since that time at the Shen residence, so she didn't know who he was. Asterisk pleading for votes, pleading for votes. Chapter 207. Shi Shang naturally didn't know about Qin Longyue's situation. She was also in a lot of trouble right now. People from the mainland knew that she had returned to the city, but they still didn't give up and wanted to snatch the Rainbow Lotus. Four Corner City couldn't be locked up forever, so every once in a while, people would come looking for death. For you. Bu Jingyun, dressed in red again, passed the box containing the Rainbow Lotus to her. Why are you giving it to me? She didn't need this, Mary Sue. Since I'm giving it to you, take it. Shi Shang. This is from me, BBB, okay? Why are you giving it back to me now? Bu Jingyun snorted, then placed the box beside Shi Shang and turned to leave. Shi Shang's mouth twitched. This guy is getting more and more arrogant. Why didn't I have the Black Eagle scratch him to death back then? Shi Shang glanced at the Rainbow Lotus, his eyes curving into a sinister smile. Don't you want the Rainbow Lotus? I'll give it to you. Four Corner City had been very busy recently. What was their strange city lord playing at? She was actually inviting all the major powers of the mainland to a banquet. Putting aside whether or not those people would come, just based on the fact that Four Corner City had locked those people outside last time, if they really came, wouldn't they use their power to avenge private grudges and settle the score together? They couldn't understand their city lord's train of thought at all. Even Bu Jingyun couldn't figure it out, let alone these commoners. Why did she provoke these people again for no reason? Then, Bu Jingyun saw the invitation she had sent out. Aside from the names of the invitees, there was only one line on the invitation. If you want the Rainbow Lotus, come to Four Corner City. He couldn't understand her train of thought at all. Those who received the invitation didn't understand either, but the allure of the Rainbow Lotus made them willingly jump into it even though they knew it was a trap. Everyone knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. After a few months, Four Corner City was once again bustling with activity. The streets and alleys were packed with people. It was very crowded, and fights were happening every minute. Qin Langyue was wrapped in a black robe, her figure slightly bloated. She entered the city with Zhongxi, her face covered by a black veil filled with twisted hatred. Don't worry, you'll recover once we get the Rainbow Lotus. Zhongxi patted Qin Langyue's shoulder in consolation. Thank you, Mentor, Qin Langyue replied in a low voice. Zhongxi sighed. The disciple he thought highly of had actually ended up like this. Qin Langyue's gaze fell on her slightly swollen belly, her eyes filled with malevolent hatred. If Zhongxi had not said that she could not abort the child, she really wanted to abort it. She didn't know if she was pregnant with the Snake Kings or the Wolf Kings, but no matter which one it was humiliating. She had even become like this because of this humiliation. How could they not hate him? Fortunately, she still had a chance. As long as she obtained the Rainbow Lotus, she would be able to regain her youth and beauty. The city lord is coming. A commotion suddenly broke out in the crowd, pushing Qin Langyue to the side. If it weren't for Zhongxi reaching out to support her, she would have been knocked to the ground. The crowd parted to form a path for the purple-robed girl and the red-robed man to enter from the city gates. What a perfect couple! When Qin Langyue saw Shi Shang, a thick murderous aura surged from her body. Fortunately, there were many people in the city who wanted to kill Shi Shang, so her murderous aura didn't seem that obvious. Zhongxi pulled Qin Langyue back and shook his head slightly, telling her not to be rash. Qin Langyue took a deep breath. Shen Yaoguang, I'll let you live a little longer. Her gaze fell on the man walking side by side with Shi Shang, and her pupils constricted. It's him. The man who owns the Medicine King's Cauldron. On the day stated on the invitation, everyone arrived early and took their own seats. The most conspicuous ones were Qin Langyue, who was wrapped in a black robe, and a masked man. The man had a powerful aura around him, and his gaze was sharp. The area around him was empty, with not a single person in sight. This was a square building, and everyone was gathered at the bottom. Shi Shang appeared on the second floor with a box in his arms. He greeted everyone with a satisfied expression. "Hi, long time no see." There was a strange silence below. The first to break the silence was a tall man with a full beard. "Shen Yaoguang, what kind of tricks are you playing?" His voice was rough, and the entire building seemed to tremble. Shi Shang leaned against the railing on the second floor and looked at the bearded man with a calm gaze. "I'm still the lord of a city. What do you think you're doing by calling me Shen Yaoguang? I'm already giving you face by calling you Shen Yaoguang. Do you know what the people outside call you?" The bearded man was instantly enraged. A thin man beside him immediately pulled him back, shrewdness written all over his face. Monkey spirit was the best word to describe him. He comforted the bearded man with a few words, then cupped his hands and nodded at Shi Shang. "City Lord Shen, please don't bicker with a boor like him. We were invited here by you, so you're the host and we're guests. Please bear with us." "So you're saying that I can't talk back when he insults me, and I can't fight back when he hits me?" Shi Shang raised his brows. "So what if I'm the host? Did I force them to come here?" The monkey spirit was at a loss for words. That wasn't what he meant. "City Lord Shen, let's not beat around the bush. We're all here for the Rainbow Lotus. What do you think we should do in order for you to give it to us? Auction it off, or what?" Someone couldn't wait any longer and asked. Shi Shang placed the box on the railing. Everyone's eyes were glued to the box in Shi Shang's hands. The atmosphere in the entire place became tense, and there was an undercurrent in the air. Shi Shang opened the box, and a majestic spiritual energy poured out, making everyone feel comfortable. The greedy and covetous gazes became blatant, so hot that it seemed like they could set the air on fire. The people below were getting restless. "I called you guys here." Shi Shang dragged out his words, then took out the rainbow lotus. When he left the box, the rainbow lotus color dimmed a bit. "Don't take it out," someone immediately shouted. "It'll lose its effect if you take it out." Half of the rainbow lotus was in the box, while the other half was exposed to the air. Shi Shang glanced at the man, then continued slowly, "I called you guys here to watch the destruction of the rainbow lotus, so you won't keep thinking about me." "What?" Everyone's eyes widened. They didn't seem to understand what he was saying. Was he speaking human language? Watch the destruction of the rainbow lotus? Then, they watched as Shi Shang took out the entire rainbow lotus and exposed it to the air. "Shan Yaoguang!" Qin Longyue's shrill roar pulled everyone back to reality. They all used their spiritual energy and leapt into the air, trying to snatch the rainbow lotus. However, Shi Shang wasn't afraid at all. He stood there calmly with a mocking smile on his face. Just as those people touched the second floor, they suddenly fell down like dumplings. Following that, a large number of people collapsed. Those who were barely able to stand were also powerless and did not dare to move. "Don't waste your energy. You've been poisoned the moment you stepped in here." When the people below heard this, they immediately tried to use their spiritual energy to force the poison out. Friendly reminder: you'll die faster if you use your spiritual energy. Asterisk pleading for votes. There's a Mid-Autumn Festival event in the book review section. Chapter 208. As soon as Shi Shang finished speaking, the first few people to use their spiritual energy started foaming at the mouth. They fell to the ground and started convulsing. Within 10 seconds, they stopped breathing. This change made everyone's expression change. "Shen Yaoguang, not all of our people are here. Even if you've poisoned us, they'll save us sooner or later when they find out. You're making the entire continent your enemy. You make it sound like I'm going to do something to you." Shi Shang pursed his lips. "I invited you to watch the destruction of the rainbow lotus and prove it to me. Don't keep circling around me." Shi Shang tossed the rainbow lotus, which had already lost its luster and withered, to the ground. She gloated, "Take a good look at the rainbow lotus you guys want. You might only get to see it once in your lifetime. The people below were so angry they wanted to vomit blood. This Shen Yaoguang was crazy. So many of them had been invited here, but in the end, they had to watch as the Rainbow Lotus turned into trash. Their hearts were bleeding. Countless people blacklisted Shen Yaoguang in their hearts. This woman tricked them once and dared to do it again. How hateful. June Hanlin, who was standing in the corner, was also livid under his mask. This woman was really surprising. The Rainbow Lotus was destroyed just like that. The only reason was that the people on the continent were thinking about her. Last time, he thought he was getting rid of her backer, but in the end, he was just paving the way for her. He wondered if she had predicted that he would attack the Shen family when she provoked him. Shi Shang seemed to have noticed his gaze as she glanced at him from the corner of her eye. Her gaze was as calm as ever. For some reason, June Hanlin suddenly felt that he had been recognized. Shi Shang looked away after a few seconds. Someone will give you the antidote when you leave the city. If you have any backbone, don't take it. If not, just take it. After a pause, he continued, this poison will make your body weak and you can't use spiritual energy. There are no other side effects. I believe that you won't bow down to evil forces, right? I have faith in you. Pfft. There was no such thing as the most shameless, only more shameless. They couldn't hit her, and scolding her had no effect at all. The group was sullen. When they left the city, they were still debating whether to take the antidote. Qin Langyue hadn't expected such an outcome. She clearly had a chance to recover, but Shen Yaoguang had personally crushed her hopes. She hated him. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a masked man walking past her. He had a jade pendant on his waist. That jade pendant looked very familiar. June Hanlin. Qin Langyue suddenly stepped forward and grabbed the man's arm. June Hanlin, why are you here? She had seen that jade pendant on June Hanlin before, but he wasn't wearing it at that time. She had seen it by accident and almost forgot about it when she saw it just now. Why would a fool like June Hanlin appear here? Something's not right. His aura is completely different. Let go. June Hanlin frowned and scolded. If it weren't for the fact that he was so weak right now, he would have already shaken off the woman who was pulling him. Although he couldn't see the face beneath the black veil, he couldn't be mistaken about the voice. It was Qin Langyue, his fiancée. The last time they returned from the setting sun forest, she had wrapped herself up tightly, and her attitude towards him was even worse. She had even hit him a few times. How could June Hanlin be nice to her now? Girl, you've got the wrong person. The seventh prince can't possibly be here. Zhongxi hurriedly pulled Qin Langyue back. I'm not mistaken, he's June Hanlin. Qin Langyue shook her head. June Hanlin, you're not a fool. You're lying to me. Fool? Huh? Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not. June Hanlin's voice carried a hint of sarcasm. He was going to make his move when he returned, so there was no need to hide anymore. Why did you lie to me? Qin Langyue used all her strength to hold on to June Hanlin. She didn't know why, but her intuition told her that she should hold on tight to him. June Hanlin's sharp gaze fell on Qin Langyue. Why? Who do you think you are? Why do I need to explain my actions to you? A trace of panic flashed through Qin Langyue's eyes, but she quickly calmed down, as if she was grasping at a life-saving straw. I'm your fiancé. Then from now on, you're not. June Hanlin pulled his arm away from Qin Langyue's grasp, sneering in his heart. Qin Langyue, you disgust me. Qin Langyue, you disgust me. You disgust me. Disgust me. These words kept repeating in her head. Why did he lie to me? He's clearly not a fool, so why did he lie to me? Why? The despair and resentment in her eyes were gradually replaced by hostility. By the time Zhongxi noticed that something was wrong with Qin Langyue, it was already too late to stop her. Zhongxi was the first to suffer. A person who fell into a demonic state would lose their mind and go on a killing spree. Moreover, they would be extremely obsessed with their inner demons. Qin Langyue's inner demon was Shi Sheng. News of someone going on a killing spree in Four Corner City quickly reached Shi Shang's ears. As the city lord, Shi Shang naturally had to go and take a look. Most people hadn't left the city yet. After all, they didn't have much strength left, so it was already good enough that they'd made it this far. None of them had expected Qin Langyue to suddenly go on a killing spree. Many of them had suffered such grievous deaths. How could Qin Langyue go on a killing spree? Haha, can you explain a person who fell into a demonic state with common sense? In novels, people who fell into a demonic state could go berserk even if they still had a single breath left. By the time Shi Shang arrived, the people of Four Corner City had already surrounded Qin Langyue and were attacking her in a flurry. As soon as she appeared, Qin Langyue was like a ferocious beast that had caught the scent of food. Her pitch-black eyes stared straight at her as her body flashed and she dashed towards Shi Shang. Wherever she passed, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. The wind lifted the black veil covering her face, revealing her bark-like skin underneath. The people around her all sucked in a breath of cold air. This woman's figure looked like a young woman, so how could she be so terrifying under her veil? Shen Yaoguang, die! Qin Langyue's voice was stiff, but one could still hear the hatred in it. Shi Shang drew his iron sword. He'd wanted to show off and block Qin Langyue's attack, but the power behind it had exceeded his expectations. His body staggered ungracefully. Holy shit! Falling into a demonic state really is something. Even her battle prowess has skyrocketed. After Qin Langyue's first attack succeeded, a second one followed. Shi Shang braced himself to fight Qin Langyue. The people around him would occasionally attack Qin Langyue, making it difficult for her to concentrate. This gave Shi Shang quite a few opportunities. Qin Langyue was getting a little anxious from the attacks. She suddenly gave up on defending and ran straight towards Shi Shang, the black fog in her eyes surging wildly. Shan Yaoguang! Bu Jingyun's voice suddenly rang out from behind, almost shattering Shi Shang's eardrums. Then, a red figure appeared in front of her and pushed her back. Bang! Asterisk, there was poison ahead. Chapter 209. Shi Shang was sent flying by the shockwave and crashed into the city wall behind her. Her ears were ringing and it took her a while to recover. Shi Shang's heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like the beating of a drum. She stared blankly at the epicenter of the explosion. It was empty, with only black dust falling from the sky. Many people were affected by the explosion just now, and for a moment, screams and wails filled the air. The scene around her seemed to be in slow motion as it flashed before Shi Shang's eyes frame by frame. The sky suddenly darkened, and she seemed to hear someone calling for the hall master. The voice was panicked and hoarse. It penetrated her eardrums and went straight to the depths of her soul. Shi Shang struggled to move her eyes, but all she saw was gray. The hall master is here, hall master. Shi Shang suddenly got up and ran over, pushing aside the people blocking her way. She immediately saw a red figure with his head held by someone. He was in a sorry state, but his chest was rising and falling, proving that he was still alive. Bu Jingyun. Shi Shang's voice was trembling. She squatted down and looked at the blood-drenched man. She was suddenly at a loss, and all her calmness collapsed at this moment. She didn't need anyone to shield her. She didn't need. Bu Jingyun's eyes opened a slit, and there seemed to be a dazzling flash of light in his eyes. The enforcer was stuffing all kinds of pills into his mouth, but to no avail. Hall master. The enforcer was on the verge of tears. These were all the best healing pills. Why didn't they work? Yao. He suddenly raised his hand and stretched it toward Shi Shang. Shi Shang hurriedly grabbed his hand. Don't speak, I won't let you die, she said as she took something out of her space. But no matter what she did, Bu Jingyun didn't seem to get any better. Those things had no effect on him. Shi Shang stared blankly at him. How could this be? This was probably the most unruly Bu Jingyun had ever seen her, but it was for him. Thinking about it, he felt quite honored. His lips curled into a smile, and his voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Can you kiss me again? Shi Shang stared blankly for a moment, then seemed to remember something. She leaned forward and kissed Bu Jingyun, sending a steady stream of spiritual energy into his body. Just as a spiritual energy entered Bu Jingyun's body, a throbbing sensation spread from her heart, and a familiar aura washed over her. She widened her eyes in disbelief. However, the person she was kissing had already stopped breathing. He was lying peacefully in her arms with a smile on his face, as if he had just fallen asleep. After a long while, her lips moved and she spat out a name with great difficulty. Feng Ci. The Shi Sheng forbade anyone from touching Bu Jingyun. Even the enforcers did not dare to use force against him. She disappeared with Bu Jingyun in tow. On top of the cliff, the girl stood quietly, allowing the wind to blow against her cheeks. The red-robed man was quietly leaning against a rock beside him. His head was slightly tilted, and his red robes fluttered in the wind. If not for the fact that he was already dead, anyone who saw him would think that he was still alive. Shi Shang's body was ice-cold. Her eyes were empty as she stared at the distant town. A strange feeling ran through her body like an electric current, and her mind went blank. Host. Feng Ci. Shi Shang's lips moved, but it was extremely difficult for her to speak. Is it him? The system was silent for a moment. Host, how did you know? Shi Shang's breath caught, and she felt as if something had exploded in her mind. She felt as if she had heard the sound of a landslide, and her chest felt uncomfortably tight. How did she know? When she sent her spiritual energy into Bu Jingyun's body just now, it actually resonated with him. She had only felt that resonance with one person before. Feng Ci. Because of the strange thing he had given her, her spiritual energy resonated with Feng Ci's. It was a very comfortable feeling. When Feng Ci was free, he liked to send his spiritual energy into her body, so she was very familiar with that feeling and would never forget it. But now, she felt it from Bu Jingyun's body. Why is he here? Shi Shang tried her best to control her emotions, but her voice still trembled. She thought that she could treat Feng Ci as a virtual character, just like the people she had met before. They were all strangers who had nothing to do with her. But she realized that she couldn't. She couldn't do it. Every time in the dead of night, he would silently appear in her dazzling dreams. The image of him jumping off the peak of the North Mountain with her in his arms was like a nightmare that tormented her. She even had the crazy thought of returning to that world. But in the end, reason prevailed over madness. I'm sorry, host. I have no right to answer you. You have to rely on yourself. The system was relieved. Fortunately, the host wasn't really that heartless. She hid her feelings so deeply that even the system couldn't sense them. But it still couldn't understand why Feng Ci was different to her. How did she know? Clearly, before, Shi Sheng didn't say anything else. She quietly looked into the distance. She had already suppressed the surging emotions in her eyes, and had regained her eternal calm. It was as if the person who had almost lost control just now wasn't her. The sky was gloomy, and bean-sized raindrops fell from the sky. In the blink of an eye, it became a downpour, blurring the girl's slender figure in the rain. She suddenly crouched down and buried her head in her arms. The sound of the rain drowned out all other sounds. She just crouched there quietly. After an unknown amount of time, the rain continued to pour. The girl stood up, walked to the red-robed man's side, and picked him up. She slowly turned around and walked towards the edge of the cliff. She took a step towards the void, and her body suddenly fell. Is the host seeking death? Of course, Shi Shang wouldn't seek death. Halfway through her fall, the iron sword suddenly appeared and caught her. Shi Shang brought Bu Jingyun back to Nine Silences Hall and held a funeral for him. Then, she took the iron sword and left Nine Silences Hall. Not long after, news of her came from the continent. She said that she would give this continent to him. Even if he wasn't here. This promise was still valid. Everyone who met Shi Shang thought that she was crazy. She didn't care about whether she would die or not. She was injured and bleeding, and her life was hanging by a thread, but she was still so calm. It was as if everyone was dead in her eyes. She couldn't hear their curses, couldn't see their anger, and couldn't feel their hatred. June Hanlin had just ascended the throne when Shi Shang came calling. June Hanlin was so angry that he vomited blood. It took her 3 years to unify the 9 states continent. When the people of the continent saw her put a memorial tablet on the throne, they almost went crazy. This woman was crazy. She went through so much trouble just to make a memorial tablet the ruler of the continent. That name caused them to be shocked again. Bu Jingyun. Thank you to the cherub who tipped me. The 7th plane has ended. The next plane, supernatural language. It's not scary. It's a different kind of supernatural language. Trust me. Little Shang Shang is about to embark on the path of doting on her husband. Today's death is tomorrow's doting. Okay, let's weekly beg for votes. Chapter 210. When Shi Shang returned to the system space, he felt like something was wrong. He stood there for a long time without saying a word. The system pondered for a long time, but it didn't say anything. The current host didn't seem to be someone to be trifled with. After an unknown amount of time, she slowly walked towards the screen. Her head was slightly lowered, making it impossible to see her expression. The pressure around her was extremely low. Just as the system was trembling in fear, she suddenly slammed her hand on the screen. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Her voice sounded like it was squeezed out through gritted teeth. Host. I'm just a system, don't make things difficult for me. Shi Shang's fingertips rubbed against the screen a few times. The light from the screen shone on her face, making her look extremely gloomy. You can't explain? Then I'll tear you apart. Host. Tear me apart? How can I do that? Speak. If the system was human, it would definitely be trembling right now. After a while, it finally said, Host, I can only tell you that Feng Ci will appear in the quest. I can't say anything else. That was its bottom line. He'll appear in every quest? Shi Shang's eyes flashed. No comment. Ha. Shi Shang retracted her hand. What is the person behind you plotting against me? Is the host suffering from paranoia? Forget it, it's better for it to shut up. Shi Shang looked at the information on the screen expressionlessly. Name, Shi Shang morality points, 125000 health points, 20 contribution points, 13500 quest rank. Sequest score, 76 hidden quest. Failed hidden quest reward, 0 contribution point side quest. Failed side quest reward, 0 contribution points item list. Queen's crown. Not only did she lose 3000 morality points, but she also lost 10 HP. Shi Shang resisted the urge to tear the system apart, but when she thought about the possibility of meeting Feng Ci in the quest, she held back. Why was Bu Jingyun hit by the red sleeve lure? Check the hidden quest. Check. Although Bu Jingyun wasn't born into a prestigious family, he was still somewhat famous. The year Bu Jingyun was born, his father disappeared. Eldest uncle lusted after Mother Bu's beauty, but Mother Bu was a weak woman who couldn't protect herself. For the sake of Bu Jingyun, Mother Bu was forced to marry eldest uncle. However, first uncle already had his own wife and children. After Mrs. Bu got married, first uncle's wife had always been against Mrs. Bu. However, the more she behaved like this, the more eldest uncle doted on her mother. Eldest uncle's wife was so jealous that her mind was twisted. She got the recipe for the red sleeve lure from a rogue cultivator, so she gave eldest uncle the red sleeve lure. She did not expect that not only did eldest uncle dote on Mother Bu, he even treated Bu Jingyun as his own son. The chicken soup that eldest uncle's wife gave to eldest uncle was laced with the lure of red sleeves, and Bu Jingyun drank it. However, Bu Jingyun did not complete the entire forbidden technique, so the red sleeve lure in his body was only a half-finished product. This was also why he did not need to drink the blood of specific women. The half-finished red sleeve lure would not act up so quickly. It was only when Bu Jingyun was 16 that he had his first reaction. After uncle's wife found out, she immediately spread the rumor that he was a monster. At that time, the Bu family had already fallen into the hands of eldest uncle's wife. Eldest uncle had the will but was powerless, and Mother Bu had died an unnatural death in order to protect Bu Jingyun. Bu Jingyun fled that very night. After that, he endured and cultivated. Finally, at the age of 25, he single-handedly destroyed the Bu family and became famous. Bu Jingyun was the typical male protagonist of a fantasy novel. Of course, that was if he did not grow up to be a crooked character. Feng Xiai, since you're already here, stay. I feel like the host is turning evil. Sob sob sob. Master, the host is getting scarier and scarier. Please protect me. Do you wish to enter the next realm? Initializing teleportation. When Shishang woke up, he found himself floating. Yes, floating. She was wearing a long white robe, and her black hair was hanging in front of her eyes. She looked very much like Sadako from the TV series. Shishang was dumbfounded for a moment. This was not the right way to appear. What? Okay, I'll be right there. A voice came from next door, followed by a series of banging sounds. A woman in pajamas rushed in through the door. She hurriedly changed her clothes, then rushed out like a gust of wind. With a bang, the door was slammed shut. Shishang was dumbfounded the entire time. Could she not see him? He lowered his head and tugged at his long white robe. Ghost? A supernatural novel? Shishang sweated. He guessed that the woman would not be back for a while, so he found a secluded place and started reading the plot. This was a supernatural novel. The female lead, Ansu, was a university student. She went to visit a haunted house with her classmates and ended up having a one-night stand with a ghost king. Yep, even supernatural novels had flesh and blood. After sleeping with the ghost king, the female lead unlocked a cheat that allowed her to see ghosts. Thus, all kinds of strange and bizarre supernatural events started happening around her. The rest of the story was about the female lead and male lead working together to solve the case. They unraveled their backgrounds, and the villains came out to cause trouble for them. After a bit of torture, the male lead was brought back to life. After that, the two of them lived happily ever after. The original owner, Ning Ying, was a ghost. A ghost with no memories. She did not remember how she died. She only remembered that her name was Ning Ying. She was a little ghost raised by the villain, Feng Jin. She was sent to be a spy by the male lead, but she ended up falling in love with him. At first, the male lead had Ning Ying scare the female lead, then he would play the hero and save the damsel in distress. Ning Ying was very cooperative at first, but after a few times, she realized that the male lead had fallen in love with the female lead. How could she let her beloved ghost fall in love with someone else? Thus, Ning Ying began to seek death. She targeted the female lead in all kinds of ways, such as getting hit by a car outside, or getting hit by a flower pot while standing downstairs. Later on, the male lead and female lead got into an argument. In the end, the male lead purposely got close to Ning Ying, causing the female lead to misunderstand and become jealous. In the end, the misunderstanding was resolved, and the male lead and female lead reconciled, leaving Ning Ying dumbfounded. Thus, Ning Ying became even more evil. She almost took the female lead's life several times. When the male lead found out that it was Ning Ying who did it, he beat her up so badly that her soul almost dissipated. In the end, it was Feng Jin who called her back to avoid disaster. The female lead's classic change: if I can't have you, I'll destroy you. At first, she helped Feng Jin deal with the male lead, but she couldn't bring herself to do it at the critical moment. Feng Jin wasn't a talkative person, but he had a vicious heart. Every time Ning Ying failed because she couldn't bring herself to do it, Feng Jin wouldn't punish her. Instead, he would take her to watch the male and female lead being lovey-dovey. There was probably nothing more cruel and vicious than watching the person you loved being intimate with another woman. In the final confrontation, Feng Jin kidnapped the female lead to threaten the male lead, while Ning Ying watched over the female lead. When the male lead came to save the female lead and fell into a trap, the original owner of the body went crazy and saved the female lead. However, the male lead thought that she wanted to harm the female lead. Seeing her beloved ghost about to kill her, Ning Ying suddenly regretted her actions. In the end, Ning Ying was killed by the male lead. The original owner of the body had two wishes. The first was to let the male lead have a taste of what it was like to love someone but not have them. The second was to reincarnate. * Daily pleading ticket. Chapter 211. She'd arrived at the exact time the male lead had told her to scare the female lead. She'd already scared the female lead once last night, so she was currently upstairs. Tonight, she was going to scare the female lead again so that the male lead could save the damsel in distress and roll in the sheets. Shi Shang was speechless. Was the male lead a pervert? His head was filled with thoughts of sex. Whenever he saw the female lead eat, he'd want to have sex. Whenever he saw the female lead drink milk, he'd want to have sex. In short, this was a supernatural novel where sex was possible at any time. The title of the novel would be, Lord Ghost Husband, Don't Stop. The male lead of this novel was so perverted, but which male lead would spend all his time thinking about sex? He'd even told a ghost to scare the female lead. For the sake of sex, the male lead had really gone all out. Later on, in order to make the female lead jealous, he'd gotten close to Ning Ying, causing her to misunderstand. But when she was at her happiest, he'd dealt her a fatal blow, causing her to end up like that. Noah Ning Ying had already been reduced to ashes. How could she still have a chance to regret? System, there's a bug here. Master said that I can't answer her questions. Otherwise, I'll be exposed. It pretended not to hear. It didn't speak. The worst thing about being a ghost was that it couldn't go out when the sun was too bright. Shi Shang looked at the sunlight streaming in through the window. Even from a distance, she could feel the scorching heat. She walked around the house, only to discover a little ghost squatting in the corner of the living room. The little ghost was staring at her. Ghosts weren't that scary when they looked normal. They were about the same as normal people. Little ghosts, in particular, looked even cuter than normal children. You're a ghost too? Shi Shang floated over to his side, bored. How did you die at such a young age? The little ghost didn't reply. When Shi Shang turned around, his face suddenly began to bleed from all 7 orifices. His eyeballs sunk in and became hollow. His skin and flesh rotted away, and there seemed to be little white worms crawling around inside. Shi Shang. Changing your face at the slightest disagreement? You make it sound like I don't know how to do that. Shi Shang recalled how the original owner had scared the female lead, and immediately changed into an even scarier appearance. The little ghost cried out and returned to his fair and tender appearance. He shrank into a corner and began to cry. Mama, this ghost is so scary. Shi Shang rolled his eyes at the naughty child. The Shi Shang ignored the crying kid and ran to the door to play through the wall. When the sun went down, Shi Shang immediately floated out. There was a small neighborhood outside, and it looked quite old. She floated to the entrance of the neighborhood and saw the female lead coming back. She was wearing refreshing sportswear and looked sweet. When she smiled, there were 2 dimples on her cheeks. She looked especially sweet. However, her smile was a little forced. It was obvious that she was not in a good state. Behind her was the male lead, Nailan Ing. However, the female lead didn't seem to know that the male lead was following her. She skillfully greeted the people in the neighborhood and went upstairs. Nailan Ing didn't follow the female lead. Instead, he walked up to Shi Shang and ordered him coldly, "Continue scaring her today." The ghost chi on his body was very strong. When he leaned over, even though Shi Shang could not feel the temperature, he still felt cold. "Oh," Shi Shang replied. Nailan Ing raised his chin arrogantly and walked over to the female lead. Shi Shang rubbed his chin and looked at Nailan Ying's back. The female lead was quite pitiful to be targeted by such a pervert. At night, Shi Shang went to Ansu's house. Ansu was in the middle of taking a bath, so Shi Shang turned off the electricity. And Su had encountered a lot of strange things recently. Now that there was a sudden power outage, and Su was terrified. She dawdled in the bathroom for a while before she took out her phone and shone it outside. And Su scanned her surroundings with a faint light. She didn't hear anything else, so she wrapped herself in a towel and walked out of the bathroom. After adapting to the darkness for a while, her vision was no longer so dark. She carefully observed her surroundings. "ZZ. Ah!" And Su cried out in alarm. She covered her ears and shrank to the side. "Ah! Ah! MMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMMM not unfamiliar to her. She opened her ears, and the sound became louder and clearer. She turned her head to look at the television. On the TV screen, two white bodies were doing a harmonious exercise. She didn't recognize the woman, but she would recognize the man even if he turned into ashes. That was the ghost who took her virginity. Last night, he even forced himself on her. The scene on the TV became more and more intimate. And Sue's face turned red. It was one thing for him to force himself on her, but he actually showed her something so shameless. "Nailin Ing, get out here!" And Sue suddenly shouted, her face full of anger. The room returned to darkness as soon as she spoke. Shi Shang quickly floated out of the room. Nailin Ing was now stronger than her. Shi Shang didn't dare to hide outside and eavesdrop. It wouldn't be fun if he was discovered. Shi Shang swayed as he floated out of the neighborhood. The streets outside were bustling with traffic and lights, but she felt like she couldn't fit in. Well, who told her to be a ghost? What could ghosts do? Ordinary little ghosts could only scare people, give people some porn or something, and cause some accidents. Their magic power was terrifyingly low. Only malicious ghosts could increase their magical power. But if she became a malicious ghost, she wouldn't be able to reincarnate. She wouldn't be able to fulfill the original owner's wishes. Also, if Feng Ci could appear during the mission, she would still look for him. Of course, her people had to stay by her side. It was a bit troublesome to confirm Feng Ci's identity. She needed to use spiritual power. This plane, Shi Shang sensed for a moment. This plane actually had spiritual energy. Although it wasn't very dense, it wasn't a problem for cultivation. Shi Shang guessed that the spells set in this plane also needed spiritual energy to support them. But since there weren't many people who could cultivate, the spiritual energy here was relatively weak. It was just like wearing clothes that were as big as you were. Big clothes would make you look empty and unsatisfied. Small clothes would make you burst. With spiritual energy, things would be much easier. She just had to cultivate like a ghost cultivator in the cultivation world. Shi Shang found a place with dense spiritual energy and started absorbing it to cultivate. This cultivation lasted for more than 10 days. Fortunately, she had chosen a place where there was no one around. When Shi Shang felt that he had some spiritual energy left and could show off, he leisurely floated back to the city. He first went to Sue's house to take a look. There was no one there. She was probably at school. And so, Shi Shang floated back to school. But just as she floated downstairs, she was stopped by a person. No, a ghost. It was the little ghost she saw before. "Don't go out. There's a bad guy outside," the little ghost said timidly as it hid behind a big tree. "Bad guy? What bad guy?" She didn't find anything wrong when she came back. The little ghost probably didn't have enough vocabulary in its head. After a while it stuttered. "He's very good looking, but very fierce. The two ghosts in the next building were taken away by him. He's very scary. Asterisk begging for votes T to the power of T." Chapter 212. He was good-looking and fierce. Could it be Feng Jin? Shi Shang's eyes darted around as his mind raced. Feng Jin was the ultimate villain of the story. Feng Ci and Bu Jingyun were both the ultimate villains. Perhaps he was the ultimate villain in the mission world as well. It seemed that she had to take a look at this master. If it was Feng Ci, then she would raise him. The little ghost was frightened by Shi Shang's sinister smile. His little body trembled involuntarily. Why did he feel that this ghost was scarier than the person outside? Sob. Sob. Mama, this ghost is really scary. I want to go home. Shi Shang reached out and patted the little ghost's head. Hurry up and go back. Big sister will help you chase the bad guy away. The little ghost didn't believe it. That bad guy was so powerful that he even subdued the malicious ghost in the building next door. But when he saw Shi Shang's sinister smile, he tactfully shut up and floated back into the building. Shi Shang floated outside the neighborhood. There was a metal fence outside the neighborhood. Shi Shang circled it but didn't see Feng Jin. Could it be that it wasn't Feng Jin? Just as she was feeling puzzled, the system beeped. Hidden mission. Autumn Moon Cold River, Shi Shang. F***CK. Bullying her for not being educated? That idiom was becoming more and more meaningful. Autumn Moon Cold River was a metaphor for a virtuous person with a pure heart. Mission target. Feng Jin. Correct Feng Jin's worldview and turn him into a virtuous exorcist. Shi Shang. Could she refuse? Virtuous? What the hell? She didn't think that Feng Jin's worldview was anything wrong. The host's worldview was all wrong. Asking her to save someone with such a worldview was too beautiful to imagine. Shi Shang needed to shut down and take a break. Since the system had issued a mission, Feng Jin must be nearby. Shi Shang circled the neighborhood again but still couldn't find him. She rubbed her head in annoyance. Did Feng Jin get off the ground? Feng Jin didn't get off the ground, but he was in the sky. He descended from the sky and landed in front of Shi Shang. He was wearing a dark blue gown from the period of the Republic of China. It was embroidered with dark patterns and looked noble and luxurious. A few leaves swirled down, and time seemed to drag on for a moment. He tilted his head slightly, and his exquisite facial features were somewhat distorted by the light. His eyes were lowered, and his long and curly eyelashes brushed a small shadow on his fair face. His thin lips were slightly pursed, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. That gown was clearly out of place with the current era, but when he wore it, it was exceptionally well ironed, as if he was a rich young master from that era. He glanced sideways and a pair of slightly gloomy eyes looked over. His voice was slow and low. Where have you been for so many days? Shi Shang blinked. That's right, I'm now Feng Jin's woman. Ghost. I was captured by Nalan Ing. It wasn't easy for me to escape. Shi Shang's little face immediately fell. He opened his mouth and started slandering the male lead. He floated toward Feng Jin and tried to grab his wrist. However, before he could touch her, he felt a burning pain on his fingertips. Shi Shang reflexively retracted his hand. F***CK. I can't touch Feng Jin? Then how can I be sure that he's not Feng Ci? Melancholy. A strange light flashed through Feng Jin's gloomy eyes, as if he hadn't noticed her movements. Nalan Ing captured you? Why? How would I know? He suddenly captured me. Shi Shang rubbed his fingers and nodded, not forgetting to slander the male lead. I don't want to stay by his side. He's too perverted. Perverted? Feng Jin said this word very slowly, as if he didn't understand why Shi Shang would describe Nalan Ing in such a way. That's right. He's old and perverted. He always wants to have sex with girl. And Sue. I'm still a pure person. Why would I think of such dirty things? Shi Shang nodded seriously as he reached out to touch Feng Jin. However, he quickly retracted his hand as if he'd been electrocuted. Feng Jin looked at his foolish behavior and didn't react. He only calmly reminded him, "You're a ghost now." After a pause he said, "Then come back with me." Okay. Shi Shang circled Feng Jin twice, then asked curiously, "What are you doing here? Aren't you going to avenge me?" Collecting ghosts. Feng Jin glanced at him and said honestly, "Nalan Ing is too strong. I'm not his match." The villain wasn't strong enough to crush the male and female leads. Shi Shang looked disappointed. Then I'll just do it myself. The villains were too weak. Bad review. Extremely bad review. Huh? Feng Jin didn't hear what she was mumbling. Shi Shang looked at the sky with a melancholy expression and didn't answer Feng Jin. Feng Jin. Why is there something wrong with this ghost I'm raising? Feng Jin brought Shi Shang back. Shi Shang didn't stop for a moment on the way back. One moment, he'd float here and there, scaring the ghosts that passed by and causing them to run amok. Feng Jin was depressed. Why didn't he notice this hidden personality of his in the past? Feng Jin was the successor of the Feng family in the exorcist world. He moved out of the Feng family mansion when he turned 18 and lived in an ordinary residential area. There were 2 bedrooms, a study, and another room next to the study. The original owner of the body had never been in that room, so she didn't know what it was. Feng Jin brought Shi Shang back and went into the room next to the study without giving her any instructions. Shi Shang had no choice but to walk around the living room. The place was tidy and neat. Feng Jin only came out when she was done. Shi Shang immediately went over and reached out to touch him. Naturally, he bounced back. Why can't I touch you? Shi Shang rubbed his fingers, his face twitching. I just want to touch you. There's a difference between humans and ghosts. Feng Jin's gloomy eyes swept over him. Shi Shang. Bullshit. How can the male and female leads touch each other? They can even have sex. Feng Jin lit an incense stick for her. Shi Shang floated in the air with a look of disdain. I want to eat meat. How dare you entertain me with this thing? Give me a bad review. Even if I'm Feng Ci, I'll give you a bad review. Feng Jin frowned, the suspicion in his heart growing. Didn't you tell me you don't like meat? When did I say that? You used to only give me this thing to eat. My face turned green from eating it. Look. Shi Shang stuck his face in front of Feng Jin. It turned ugly. Do you know that you're mistreating your employees? I can complain about you. Feng Jin's eyebrows twitched. Where can I complain? Do you think I'm working at the company? Did Nailin Ing trigger some hidden personality out of me this time? Humans can change their personality after experiencing certain things, and ghosts are the same. Come on, vote for me. It's the last day of the week, so please vote for me. I'll be lucky next week. There's a mid-autumn festival in the book review and comment section. Otherwise, I won't be able to reach so many comments. Chapter 213. In the end, Shi Shang still managed to eat meat. Sniff. Feng Jin watched as the white figure paced back and forth around the table, trying to reach for food. He was speechless. Not only had her personality changed, but her IQ had also gone offline. Shi Shang expressed that it wasn't that her IQ had gone offline, but that she wasn't used to being a ghost. She actually couldn't eat meat. Bad review. Being a ghost wasn't good at all. Shi Shang floated over to Feng Jin. Is there any way for me to return to the living world? Since the male lead had already returned to the living world, there was definitely a way for her to return to the living world. Feng Jin raised his head to look at her. His gloomy eyes were filled with yin energy. The temperature in the room seemed to have frozen, and a heavy weight pressed down on Shi Shang. Shi Shang frowned. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly felt that he couldn't move. It was as if invisible ropes had bound his limbs. He couldn't move at all. F***ck, what's going on? Feng Jin stood up. His pale fingers pinched Shi Shang's chin and lifted it slightly. The moment Feng Jin touched him, Shi Shang felt as if his chin had been corroded by strong acid. The numbing sensation made him want to die. Ning Ing, what did Nailin Ing give you to test me? F***ck, who's testing you? There's cat biscuits. Shi Shang grimaced in pain. He summoned the iron sword and swung it at Feng Jin. Do you think I'm a pushover? Feng Jin frowned the moment the iron sword appeared. This sword, however, the iron sword didn't give Feng Jin a chance to think. It slashed at his head. If Feng Jin wanted to avoid the iron sword, he had to let go of Shi Sheng. As soon as he did, the iron sword immediately flew back to Shi Sheng's side and cut off the invisible ropes binding him. As soon as the ropes were removed, Shi Sheng clutched his chin and stomped his feet in pain. He howled at Feng Jin, "Feng Jin, you have cat biscuits. I's chin. F*ck, I'm crippled, aren't I?" Feng Jin stood on the opposite side of the sofa, looking at the iron sword beside her with a dark and gloomy gaze. After a while, Shi Sheng felt the burning pain lessen a little. When he looked up, he saw Feng Jin sizing up the iron sword. "What does Nailan Ing want you to find out from me?" Feng Jin averted his gaze, a hint of fear in his voice. It had only been a month since he last saw her, but she actually had an unknown sword and even betrayed him. When he thought of this, Feng Jin's heart surged with anger. Those who betrayed him deserved to die. It was as if a storm was brewing in the depths of his eyes, and he was about to tear the Shi Sheng apart. Hey, don't be so evil." Sensing that something was wrong with Feng Jin's expression, Shi Sheng hurriedly said, "I have nothing to do with Nailan Ing. He's just a pervert. Why would I fall for him? Why are you looking at me like that? You don't believe me? I can't do anything about it." Shi Sheng spread his hands with an expression that said, "It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Anyway, it's what I said." He would turn evil at the slightest disagreement. He wasn't cute at all. He definitely wasn't her Feng Ci. Shi Sheng held the iron sword and gauged the strength of both sides. In the end, he chose to give up. She really wanted him to come over and let her touch him. If this guy wasn't Feng Ci, she would chop him up. But now that she wasn't sure, she didn't dare to cut him down. Feng Jin stared at her, deep in thought. The entire room fell silent. Ghosts didn't breathe, but Shi Sheng could barely hear Feng Jin's breathing. If it weren't for his rising and falling chest, she would have suspected that this guy was also a ghost. "Tonight, do it for me." After saying this, Feng Jin turned around and went into the study. "Do it for him. Do it for him. Seriously. I'm so angry." Shi Sheng poked the iron sword at the sofa in Feng Jin's house. In the end, he felt that it wasn't enough to vent his anger, so he slashed it a few more times. Just like that, the innocent sofa was dismembered. Half an hour before midnight, Feng Jin came out of his room. When he saw the mess in his room, he was momentarily speechless. He looked at the female ghost in white who was sitting on a high chair piled up by a pile of junk. She had her legs crossed and her head propped up in her hands. She was humming an unknown tune. If it weren't for the ghost contract between them, he really would have suspected that she had been impersonated. Although Ning Ying had a bit of a temper in the past, she was very obedient. She never dared to be so impudent in front of him. She was going to tear down his house. Feng Jin clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. What if he wanted to strangle her? Shi Sheng floated over to Feng Jin with the iron sword in tow and waved his hand domineeringly. "Lead the way." "Yep, I want to strangle her even more now." The room was a little dim, so Feng Jin's face was hidden in the darkness. However, his eyes emitted a faint, cold light. Shi Sheng cautiously floated back a distance. "I sell my body, not my skills. Although I'm a ghost you're raising, I won't allow you to have an unfinished relationship with a ghost." Not his skills? His skills in bed? Feng Jin resisted the urge to strangle Shi Sheng and opened the door to leave. Before Shi Sheng could follow, the door slammed shut with a bang. Shi Sheng was so startled that he slammed on the brakes. His face was full of emotions. That's not right. She can just go through the wall. Why did he stop? Shi Sheng dragged the iron sword out the door. He did go out, but the iron sword was stuck. The iron sword was a physical object. Naturally, it couldn't go through the door. Feng Jin silently watched as Shi Sheng made a fool of himself. In the end, his door was gloriously sacrificed and died without a burial place. He was chopped in half. Feng Jin, this violent maniac. Satisfied, Shi Shang dragged the iron sword out the door. How could a small matter like this stump him? He couldn't put the iron sword away. That bastard Feng Jin wanted to kill him. Saving his own life was more important. Put it away. Feng Jin shifted his gaze from Security Door's corpse, which had completed its mission, to Shi Shang. Shi Shang hid the iron sword behind his back. I can cut off my head and bleed, but I can't drop my weapon. This is a weapon forged from my soul. I won't take it. Feng Jin. Where did this Chunibyu come from? He took a deep breath. It can't turn invisible. It'll attract attention. Are you kidding me? Who would be outside at this hour? Aren't they afraid of running into ghosts? Shi Shang made it clear that he wasn't going to take it. What could he do about it? Feng Jin glanced at the broken security door one more time, then silently turned around and walked toward the elevator. Although he lived in an ordinary residential area, there was no one on this floor. Even if someone came, they wouldn't be able to enter. Hence, it was fine even if the door was left open. Shi Shang eagerly followed him in. Unwilling to give up, he kept trying to touch Feng Jin. Feng Jin didn't look at him and ignored him. After they got into the car, Shi Shang finally calmed down. She had to think of a way to suppress the ghost contract between her and Feng Jin. Otherwise, if she really pissed Feng Jin off and he wanted to kill her, she probably wouldn't be able to escape. There were a lot of restrictions in a contract. For example, the ghost contract between her and Feng Jin was a master-servant contract. If Feng Jin wanted her dead, she wouldn't be able to resist. For the sake of her life, Shi Shang decided not to tease Feng Jin for the time being. She would tease him again when she found a way. Asterisk, tipping and updating. Thanks to Fairy's Pocket Cherub for the tip. Chapter 214. Feng Jin brought Shi Shang to Ensu's neighborhood. Shi Shang wanted to float out of the car, but then he remembered that his sword couldn't go through the door, so he could only get out from Feng Jin's side. Open the door himself? Sorry, but ghosts need to use their magical power to touch objects. How could they waste their magical power over such a trivial matter? They had to save their magical power for fighting. Feng Jin's car was parked on the road outside the neighborhood. It was quiet all around, with only the occasional car whizzing by in the distance. Shi Shang dragged the iron sword behind him as he followed Feng Jin. If someone else were here, they would see the sword flying by itself. The neighborhood was old-fashioned, and the security measures weren't very good. Feng Jin easily climbed over the fence. There were a few buildings that weren't too tall, and the occasional light from the first floor was like a beacon in the dark. Feng Jin stopped at Ensu's building and looked up for a while. Then he turned to Shi Shang and said softly, "Go lure Neilaning out." Shi Shang pointed at himself. "Me alone? Bah, a ghost. Didn't you want me to believe you? Then prove it to me and lure him out." Feng Jin spoke very slowly, as if he wanted Shi Shang to hear him clearly. "How do you know he's here? Was Feng Jin so sure that Neilaning was here? Even if he liked to have sex with the female lead, he still had time to rest, right? You don't want to go?" Feng Jin's voice suddenly turned sinister. "Shi Shang. Fine, I'll go. I'm not scared of you. Watch me beat up the male lead. You'll be scared to death." Shi Shang dragged the iron sword and floated upstairs. Feng Jin wanted to remind her that the sword was too eye-catching. But when he thought about how she'd used that sword to destroy his house, he averted his gaze as if it didn't concern him. Shi Shang floated to Ensu's window. Her window was the old-fashioned kind, and it wasn't closed. The curtains fluttered wildly in the wind, casting a sinister shadow on the ground. Shi Shang floated in through the window, and a faint sound came from the bedroom. It was a strange kind of moaning and moaning. Shi Shang floated to the bedroom door, gripped the iron sword tightly, took a deep breath, and slashed down. "Neilaning, you heartless be*****starred. How dare you sleep with someone else here? Shi Shang roared as soon as he entered the room. Then, he slashed at the person on the bed. Ah! Ansu shrieked in fright at this sudden shout. Nalan Ing hugged Ansu and rolled to the ground. The two of them were both naked, and a certain part of their bodies was tightly pressed together. Shi Shang did not give Nalan Ing a chance to react. She raised her sword and slashed at him again. You scumbag! You played with my feelings and now you're having sex with her. Are you cheating on her again? You are harming him by sucking his yang energy. Why are you so disgusting? I must have been blind in the past. Ansu didn't see Shi Shang. She only saw an iron sword continuously attacking them, and a clear, angry voice shouting in her ears. Seeing that it was about time, Shi Shang immediately withdrew his sword and floated outside. Nalan Ing let go of Ansu and immediately put on a set of clothes. He stood up and chased after Shi Shang. How dare he interrupt me at a time like this? He's courting death. Nalan Ing was faster than Shi Shang expected. Before she could leave the building, Nalan Ing had already blocked her path. He stared coldly at Shi Shang. Then, he suddenly raised his hand. Shi Shang felt a suction force pulling her towards him. The old light bulbs in the corridor began to hum and flicker. The two of them became eerie. Holy shit, this is the star-sucking technique. Shi Shang stabbed his iron sword into the wall beside him to stabilize himself. Then, he glanced at the unprotected window of the emergency exit. Shi Shang moved to the window, gritted his teeth, and jumped out. As soon as he was outside, the suction force disappeared. However, Nalan Ing quickly chased after him. The two of them landed in the greenery outside the neighborhood. Nalan Ing used the same trick again. Mother ****, are you done yet? Shi Shang quickly took out the little ball. With the little ball in hand, I have the world. Not to mention the male lead, even God has to bow down to me. Shi Shang threw the little ball at him. The male lead probably sensed that it was dangerous and dodged it. However, he was still caught in the explosion and was sent flying by the shockwave. The explosion was so loud that the lights in the nearby buildings lit up one after another. Shi Shang dragged his iron sword and ran out of the neighborhood. The residents of the neighborhood only saw a large crater in the greenery. Lightning flashed in the crater, making it look eerie in the dark night. Shi Shang dragged the iron sword out of the neighborhood and floated all the way to Feng Jin's car. Feng Jin hadn't returned yet. She waited for a while before Feng Jin slowly came out. He gave Shi Shang a strange look before opening the car door. Shi Shang floated in before he could get in. Feng Jin paused for a moment before getting into the car. Feng Jin didn't drive, so the lights in the car were off. It was dark, so Shi Shang couldn't see Feng Jin's expression. That thing you threw just now? He hadn't seen this ghost for a month. How did it become so powerful? I'm not selling it. Shi Shang leaned back cautiously. Feng Jin was silent for a few seconds before he started the car. Don't blow up my house. What a waste. Shi Shang pursed his lips and added arrogantly, I can easily take care of your lousy place. Feng Jin slammed on the accelerator, and Shi Shang almost got plastered on the car window. Feng Jin seemed to believe that Shi Shang had nothing to do with Nalan Ing, but he didn't mention anything about his return to the living world. The next day, Shi Shang saw a sensational piece of news on the internet. A mysterious crater has appeared in a certain neighborhood. Lightning hasn't dissipated. Aliens are suspected to have visited Earth. This piece of news immediately went viral on all the major websites. The neighborhood where Ansu lived became famous. All the major research teams flocked to the neighborhood, and the media surrounded it. Shi Shang snorted as he sniffed the aroma of meat. Aliens aren't people they can meet whenever they want. In their dreams. Feng Jin raised his head and glanced at her. He reached out to bring the laptop to his side and slammed it shut. What are you doing? Shi Shang glared at him. Don't talk when you're eating. I haven't eaten yet. I'm just smelling, okay? My mouth is so bland. Just smelling it makes me hungrier. Why can't ghosts eat? Don't ghosts eat and drink as much as they want in novels? Shi Shang propped up his chin and looked at Feng Jin with melancholy. Being a ghost isn't good at all. Feng Jin acted as if he didn't hear him. He elegantly finished the last mouthful of milk, then got up and carried the plate to the kitchen where he washed it clean. He's ignoring me. What a temper. Shi Shang floated behind him and tried to touch him, but a burning pain came from his fingertips. He retracted his hand, feeling extremely melancholy. How can I touch you? If this goes on, how can I be sure that he's Feng Ci? Feng Jin wiped the plate dry and put it on the rack. He turned to look at her. Endure it. Ha! Endure what? Feng Jin stared into her eyes. Endure the pain. Shi Shang. Tip and update. Thank you to Fairy's Pocket Cherub for the tip. Let me seriously ask for a vote. Chapter 215. Feng Jin realized that his ghost had been appearing and disappearing unpredictably for the past few days. He had no idea what she was up to. What was Shi Shang doing? She was trying to find a way to break the ghost contract or reverse it. Of course, reality proved that she was delusional. Until now, she hadn't found a feasible solution. The only solution was to break the ghost contract. Feng Jin came out of his room and saw Shi Shang floating around the living room. She was dressed in white, and it was night time. Anyone else would have wet their pants in fright. When Shi Shang saw Feng Jin, she immediately floated over. Help me burn some clothes. It's so ugly to wear this all day. Feng Jin. She really doesn't think of me as an outsider. Yes, an outsider. At the very least, I'm the representative of your door. How could I wear something so ugly? You'll lose face if I go out. Shi Shang blabbered on and on. Feng Jin had the urge to sew her mouth shut with a needle. Isn't it better to be a quiet ghost? When Shi Shang saw that Feng Jin was silent and gloomy, she courted death by reaching out to touch him. It was the same recipe and the same taste. Shi Shang hugged her fingers and floated out the window. I'm so angry. You won't let me wear clothes, eat meat, and touch people. I'm going to run away from home. Feng Jin watched her figure disappear into the night. His temples throbbed violently as he walked toward the entryway. When he went downstairs, Feng Jin saw Shi Shang standing with a red shadow from afar. Before he could get a good look, the iron sword suddenly appeared in Shi Shang's hand and she slashed at the red shadow. It was so fast that the red shadow didn't even have a chance to resist before it was reduced to ashes. Feng Jin felt that he had underestimated this ghost of his. Although the ghost just now wasn't a real malicious ghost, it was still one step away from becoming one. Yet, she had destroyed it so easily. She was stealing an exorcist's job. But Feng Jin narrowed his eyes. Why would a malicious ghost appear here? Shi Shang stabbed the iron sword into the ground with a gloomy expression. Mother Kerr, you're wearing red and you still want to eat eye? Why don't you go to heaven? As soon as she turned around, she saw Feng Jin standing under the streetlight, looking at her with an indecipherable expression. The dim light elongated his shadow. Seeing her turn around, he walked over. Come with me. Where are you going? Why are you running around in the middle of the night? Feng Jin gave her a sidelong glance but didn't say anything. Shi Shang curled his lips and dragged the iron sword to the garage. Feng Jin sighed heavily. That sword was bound to cause trouble sooner or later. After they got into the car, Shi Shang fiddled with her iron sword while Feng Jin drove. His gaze swept over her from time to time. There was a strange song playing in the car, but it was very pleasant to listen to, so Shi Shang didn't care about it. Does your sword have a name? Feng Jin broke the silence. What he really wanted to know was where she got the sword from. Not only was he able to cut through iron like mud, he was also able to cut through ghosts. Shi Shang tilted his head and smiled maliciously. Have you heard of a legend? Feng Jin fell silent. There were so many legends. How could he know which one it was? Sher Shang didn't wait for him to answer and said softly, "Once upon a time, there was an emperor who wanted a divine weapon to help him rule the world. Someone offered him a sword and told him that as long as he sacrificed his soul, he would be able to forge a soul sword. It would belong to him and no one would be able to take it away from him. It would be able to help him rule the world." Sher Shang paused and leaned closer to Feng Jin. He smiled maliciously. "Do you think that emperor sacrificed his soul?" "No." Feng Jin's thin lips moved slightly as he spat out two words. Sher Shang curled his lips and sat up straight. The person who offered him the sword told him that if he didn't want to sacrifice his soul, he could sacrifice the souls of 99 infants. So, the emperor sent people to capture 99 infants and sacrifice them. He used that sword to unify the world, but on the day he ascended the throne, he died an unnatural death. That sword disappeared without a trace. Later, someone saw that sword killing demons and ghosts, so the world called that sword the Exorcist's Sword. Feng Jin. There was no such emperor in history, and there was no such thing as an exorcist's sword. This ghost was making things up. "You don't believe me?" Sher Shang looked at Feng Jin and smiled maliciously. "Actually, I don't believe it either. Those infants were forced to be sacrificed, so how could it have the power to exorcise demons? They were seeking revenge. So, you can call it the demon-sucking sword." Feng Jin. #What am I supposed to do with the ghost I'm raising? Waiting online. Urgent. #Host sword keeps changing names. This is crazy. Feng Jin's car stopped in front of a villa in the middle of nowhere. It was a white villa, and it was very conspicuous in the dark night. It was surrounded by trees, and the night wind made the trees rustle. The moon in the sky was covered by dark clouds, and looking at the villa at this time, it was very creepy. Sher Shang leaned against the car window and looked outside. "Is there a ghost in there?" "I don't know." Feng Jin opened the car door and glanced at Sher Shang. Sher Shang immediately floated over and got out of the car. "If you don't know, why are you here?" Standing outside, he could feel the creepiness of the villa even more clearly. It was probably a threat from his own kind. Sher Shang could feel it even more clearly, and he couldn't help but tremble. "Are we here to catch a ghost?" Feng Jin didn't seem like such a kind-hearted person. Over the past few days, she had learned how evil this fellow could be. He could watch a person get killed by a ghost right in front of him. She didn't think there was anything wrong with it. After all, the other party didn't beg him or pay him. But as an exorcist, wasn't it an occupational hazard to want to catch ghosts whenever he saw one? Depending on the situation? Feng Jin started walking toward the villa. As usual, he was wearing a long robe. The color was so dark that it almost blended into the night. Sher Shang looked up at the sky with melancholy. What's going on? Someone was waiting at the entrance of the villa. It was an elderly man. Half of his body was hidden in the dark, revealing only his wrinkled face and the lower half of his body. It was indescribably eerie. "Mr. Feng." The old man's voice was hoarse and somewhat ear-piercing. It was full of suspicion, as if he couldn't believe that such a young exorcist had come. Feng Jin nodded slightly but didn't answer the old man. The old man didn't say anything either. He just looked behind Feng Jin and saw the iron sword floating in the air. His murky eyes lit up, and his attitude became more respectful. "Mr. Feng, please come in." This young exorcist was actually able to make the sword float in the air. This young exorcist must be quite capable, right? His master could be saved. Feng Jin could roughly guess what the old man was thinking, but he didn't expose him. He couldn't possibly say that there was a ghost holding the sword beside him, could he? Sher Shang, who had inadvertently helped Feng Jin show off. These people couldn't see her at all. Sher Shang flew around with the iron sword. From the looks of it, the iron sword was out of control. The old man followed behind him in fear. Why did he suddenly feel unreliable? It's a new week. Let me ask for a ticket. It's still so early. You still have your ticket, right? Come on, throw it at me. Chapter 2:16. While the old man was leading the way, Feng Jin lowered his voice and said, "Don't cause trouble." Shi Shang spun the iron sword like an electric fan, his expression saying, "I didn't hear you. I'm going to cause trouble. Kill me if you can." Feng Jin felt that bringing her here had been a mistake. Was it too late to shove her back in now? He was about to use the ghost contract to control her. "If you dare, I'll take you down with me." Shi Shang's threat reached him as soon as he thought of it. "I'm not afraid of death." Feng Jin, even a rabbit would bite when cornered, let alone a ghost. Although they had a master-servant contract, if she wanted to take him down with her, the chances of success were still very high. Besides, she still had that sword. "Don't mess around." Feng Jin had no choice but to warn her in a low voice. "I won't mess around if you promise to give me new clothes." As a ghost, she had to use her brain to get clothes. What the hell? Feng Jin frowned. "All right." Shi Shang immediately put the iron sword away with a smile. Feng Jin. By then, the old man had already entered the villa. Feng Jin quickened his pace and stepped inside. As soon as he entered the villa, Shi Shang felt extremely uncomfortable, as if something was spying on her from the shadows. The light in the villa wasn't very bright, and everything seemed to be covered in a layer of fog. The old man led them up the stairs. The closer they got to the second floor, the stronger the feeling of being spied on. It was a very bad feeling. Shi Shang felt a little irritable. He wanted to tear this place down and drag out whatever was spying on her from the shadows. Perhaps it was because her irritable aura was so strong that even Feng Jin could feel it. "It won't dare to come near me. Relax." Feng Jin's voice reached Shi Shang's ears. She tilted her head and sneered, "You think I'm afraid of it?" She floated in the air, her lips curled into a mocking smile. Her eyes were calm, but if one looked deeper, they would see the coldness and murderous intent hidden behind that calm. Feng Jin quickly averted his gaze. His irregular heartbeat made his breathing a little chaotic. He had never seen Ning Ying like this. When he looked into her eyes, he almost couldn't breathe. At that moment, he felt like he was in a space filled with killing intent. "Mr. Feng." The old man's voice came from the front. Feng Jin immediately adjusted his state of mind and walked toward the old man. Shi Shang paused for a moment before following her. As soon as he entered the room, a strong smell of medicine assaulted his nostrils. There was also a strange smell in the room. There was a middle-aged man on the bed. His face was ashen and there was not much flesh on his face. He was all skin and bones. His lips were cracked and his breathing was weak. "Mr. Feng, please take a look." As soon as the old man saw the middle-aged man on the bed, he couldn't help but cry. I don't know why Mr. started to fall ill. Day by day, he became worse and worse. In the end, he became like this. We tried everything, but it didn't work. We really had no choice but to ask someone to find you. Feng Jin asked the old man a few simple questions. Shi Shang drifted absent-mindedly in the room. The aura here was not as strong as outside. Shi Shang floated above the middle-aged man and watched as Feng Jin examined him. Feng Jin's movements were slow, but there were no pauses or stagnation. His movements were very pleasing to the eye. Shi Shang propped his chin on his hand as he watched the old man. His mind began to wander. "I have to quickly find a way to confirm if this is Feng Ci or not. Butler, there's a young lady outside. She says she wants to stay the night here." A servant appeared out of nowhere and rattled on. The old man was clearly surprised. "Stay the night?" "Yes. She said she came here to climb the mountain but got separated from the group. When she saw the light here, she came over and said she wants to stay the night here. The villa was built here, so it definitely wasn't a deserted area. Next to it was a place frequented by mountain climbing enthusiasts. In the past, people would occasionally come here. If it was any other day, it wouldn't be a problem, but now. Take me to her." The old man bowed deeply to Feng Jin. "Mr. Feng, I'll have to trouble you." The old man staggered out with the servant, and the room quickly fell into a dead silence. "What did you see?" Shi Shang asked as he sat on the bed. She looked like a completely different person from before. She was so quiet that if one didn't look at her, they wouldn't even be able to sense her presence. "What did you see?" Feng Jin's eyes flickered. He didn't answer the question. "I'm not telling you." The corners of Shi Shang's mouth turned up. Feng Jin. If this was someone else's house, they would have been killed long ago. Feng Jin felt that he was indulging her too much. She used to be obedient, so it was fine for him to indulge her a little. But now, it seemed that he would have to teach her the rules when they got back. "Ah!" A scream suddenly rang out. The entire villa probably heard it. Shi Shang dashed outside. Feng Jin hesitated for a moment before following him. If he didn't follow this troublemaker of his, who knew how much trouble she would cause? The sound came from the kitchen on the first floor. Shi Shang was definitely faster than a person could walk, so she was the first to arrive. There was a strong smell of blood in the kitchen. Shi Shang saw the meat on the chopping board at first glance. Then, he saw the woman sitting on the floor. The woman held her head and screamed. She was only wearing a spaghetti strap dress, revealing a large part of her skin. Soon, the first person arrived. It was a man in a servant's uniform. He walked over to the woman and helped her up. "Madam, what's wrong?" "There's a ghost, there's a ghost." The woman stuttered, her voice out of tune. The old man also arrived soon after, and there was a girl with him. Shi Shang was speechless when he saw her. "And Su, why is she here?" There was no such thing in the original plot. And Su seemed to have noticed Shi Shang as well, and her expression changed. In the past, Shi Shang had always appeared in front of her in a bloody state, so she didn't recognize him. She was just scared to see a ghost like her. "There's a ghost, a ghost, a ghost." The woman called Madam was still mumbling. "Hurry and send Madam back to her room." The old man quickly ordered someone to send the woman back. 2 servants supported the woman and escorted her outside. When they reached the door, the woman suddenly broke free from them and ran forward, crashing into the arms of the person who came in. Feng Jin was caught off guard and took a step back. The woman seemed to be terrified. She hugged Feng Jin's waist tightly and pressed her soft breasts against his chest. Shi Shang floated to Feng Jin's side and stared at him with an inexplicable gaze. His gaze was calm, but there was something wrong with it. Feng Jin's scalp went numb from that gaze, and he quickly pushed the woman away. "There's a ghost. There's a ghost." The woman clung on to him, refusing to let go. Feng Jin's eyes darkened, and he lifted his hand to push her away. He used a lot of strength, and the woman was flung to the wall. The woman wanted to pounce on him again. At that moment, Ansu suddenly stepped forward and stood between the woman and Feng Jin. "Good morning, my babies." Pleading for votes. Chapter 217. Don't do anything rash, Ansu said to Shi Shang. Earlier, when Shi Shang floated over to Feng Jin, the woman happened to be in Feng Jin's arms. She thought that it was normal for Shi Shang to want to harm the woman. Shi Shang rolled his eyes at Ansu. Ansu was taken aback by Shi Shang's actions. There seemed to be something wrong with this female ghost. In the past, all the ghosts she saw were either missing limbs or vicious and cynical. None of them were like this female ghost. She rolled her eyes at me so calmly. Ansu suddenly felt that this female ghost was a little cute. Just as she was lost in thought, someone pushed her from behind. She stumbled and crashed into a bonsai placed in the hallway. The woman screamed and ran off. A group of people called out for Madam and chased after her. Soon, the only people left in the hallway were the butler, Feng Jin, Shi Shang, and Ansu. The old man was still standing in the kitchen. His face was full of vicissitudes and helplessness, and his cloudy eyes were filled with tears. Feng Jin patted his clothes, which had been wrinkled by the woman, and walked toward the kitchen. Mr. Feng. The old man immediately wiped his tears. I've offended you. I apologize on behalf of Madam. It's fine. Feng Jin glanced toward the kitchen. Can I go in and take a look? Of course, of course. The old man nodded repeatedly. To be honest, this isn't the first time Madam has acted like this. She always says that she sees ghosts. I wonder if she's been possessed. Their voices gradually trailed off. Shi Shang was still standing in the same spot. He lowered his eyes and looked at the female lead lying on the bonsai. Stupid. And Su wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Why did everyone call her stupid? She got up from the bonsai. Just now, were you the one who scared her? I'm not that bored. Shi Shang floated toward the kitchen. And Su was stunned. Why did this voice sound so familiar? She felt like she'd heard it somewhere before, but she couldn't remember where. Wait, then do you know who scared her? Is there really a ghost here? And Su chased after Shi Shang. She probably knew that there were people in the kitchen, so she lowered her voice. Aren't I a ghost? Shi Shang rolled his eyes at the female lead again. And Su? That's right. She followed Shi Shang into the kitchen. The kitchen was very quiet. The strangely dressed man from before was standing in the kitchen cutting vegetables. There were a few pieces of meat on the chopping board, still stained with blood, as if they had just been cut. And Su couldn't help but feel nauseous. She had to force herself not to throw up. She watched as the Shi Shang floated to the man's side. The man raised his head to look at her, then continued to look down at the pieces of meat. That man could see her too. And Su's brain, which she rarely used, began to work. Earlier, she'd only thought that she was trying to scare that woman because she'd seen her drifting towards that woman. But at that time, she wasn't alone. There was also this man. Aya, little girl, why did you come in? I'm really sorry. Did I scare you? I'll arrange a room right away. When the old man saw Su enter, he immediately went up to her and blocked her line of sight. It's fine, Uncle Steward. And Su shook her head. I'm already very grateful that you're willing to let me stay overnight. The old man forced a smile. It's nothing. I'll send you to your room. And Su could tell that the steward didn't want to talk about it, so she shut her mouth and didn't ask any more questions. Before she left, she glanced in the direction of Shi Shang. Feng Jin told the old man that he wanted to observe for 2 more days and told him to prepare a room. When they were at Feng Jin's house, Shi Shang had always stayed in the bedroom next to his. He didn't allow her to enter his room. But this time, it was clear that he had to let her in. As soon as Shi Shang entered the room, he occupied the only bed. I'll sleep on the bed. Feng Jin. Why would a ghost sleep on a bed? He really wanted to throw her out, but when he thought about the hidden dangers of this villa, he acquiesced to her occupying the bed and went to the sofa with his blanket. Shi Shang lay on the bed and propped his chin on his hand. That old man just called that woman Madam. Feng Jin was stunned by Shi Shang's sudden words and turned to look at him. Shi Shang flipped over and lay on his back. There's a portrait in that man's room. It looks exactly like that woman. He got up and walked to the bed, looking down at her from above. Are you saying that there's something wrong with that woman? Shi Shang blinked. She appeared in the kitchen in the middle of the night, and there's even a few pieces of human flesh. Do you think there's nothing wrong with her? How do you know that's human flesh? He didn't seem to have told her that just now, did he? Shi Shang's lips curled into a beautiful smile, but there was something strange about it. There's a difference between the smell of human blood and the smell of animal blood. Feng Jin placed his hands on either side of her head, his gloomy eyes carrying a strange chill. Ning, have you regained your memories? Shi Shang wasn't used to this oppressive position, so he got up from the bed and knelt on one knee. No. Then how do you explain your sudden change in temperament? Feng Jin stared at her and said word by word, Ning, don't lie to me. Shi Shang rolled his eyes. You can't let me touch you if I lie to you. Why would I lie to you? Feng Jin. Why do you keep wanting to touch me? Besides, temperament is something that's hard to figure out. There are so many people who change their temperament overnight. Do you have to ask them all why? If she hadn't sold herself to Feng Jin, she wouldn't have bothered to talk so much nonsense. Feng Jin remained in that position for more than 10 seconds before slowly getting up and walking back to the sofa. It wasn't until he lay down that Shi Shang heard his voice. That human flesh was freshly cut off, so it's still warm. The night passed uneventfully, but the next morning, it began to rain heavily, so Ensu had no choice but to stay. When the old man came to deliver breakfast, Feng Jin casually asked about the woman from yesterday. The old man mumbled incoherently, then excused himself and left. Even if there wasn't anything going on, it would still make people think that there was something going on. After breakfast, Feng Jin went to see the middle-aged man again. His name was Mo, a well-known entrepreneur. However, a month ago, he had suffered from dizziness and chest tightness. When he went to the hospital for a checkup, the hospital diagnosed him as simply overwork. Hence, Mo brought his wife here for a vacation. However, not only did his condition not improve, it even worsened. The big hospital and the family doctors took turns treating him, but they couldn't find anything wrong with him. Mo didn't seem to be getting any better. Instead, his condition worsened. In the end, Mo couldn't even get out of bed. Even now, he was still in a vegetative state. The butler had heard Mo's father mention the Feng family, which was an exorcist family. That was why he'd asked someone to find the Feng family. Feng Jin wasn't in the manor, so he shouldn't have known about this. However, for some reason, he ended up coming. After seeing Mo, Feng Jin took a stroll around the villa. His leisurely manner caused the servants in the villa to talk among themselves. They were also afraid of the recent events. Madame kept saying that she saw ghosts, and the villa was eerie at night. If it weren't for the generous salary, they wouldn't have stayed here. Begging for votes. The book review section didn't have a special section for the Mid-Autumn Festival event, but there was still a lottery section. Chapter 218. Because it was raining outside, Feng Jin didn't go outside. Instead, he walked around the villa. Mr. Feng, is there something wrong? The old man's heart pounded when he saw Feng Jin's gloomy expression. It was too dark last night, so he didn't get a good look at this young man. He only thought that he was a good-looking man with a cold personality. But this morning, he realized that this young man didn't seem like a kind person. He didn't know if he was right to ask him to come. Did anyone go missing recently? Feng Jin glared warningly at Shi Shang, who was standing behind the old man. He didn't know what Shi Shang was up to. No, the old man replied quickly. There are only a few people in the villa. We see each other all the time. Why are you asking this, Mr. Feng? The old man looked at Feng Jin strangely. What did Sir Feng's illness have to do with anyone going missing? Ask him if anyone left, Shi Shang reminded Feng Jin. Feng Jin glared at him. Did anyone leave the villa after Mo fell ill? The old man sighed. Why not? Everyone was scared when something like this happened. A total of 4 people left. In the end, the old man added, the last person to leave was yesterday morning. Feng Jin nodded. Tell the servants not to come out tonight, no matter what they hear. Feng Jin emphasized the last few words. The old man nodded as if he understood. He asked about Mo's condition again before leaving to make the necessary arrangements. Can Mo be saved? That man didn't seem to have much time left. Feng Jin was silent for a moment before answering, yes. Shi Shang raised his eyebrows. Can you see her too? Ensu was standing behind a pillar, only half of her body visible. Feng Jin knew Ensu. He knew everyone related to Nailan Ing. He ignored her and went upstairs. Shi Shang followed him. Ensu stood in place and rubbed her nose awkwardly. For some reason, she felt that the female ghost was a little cute, It wasn't her looks, but her personality. Of course, she was also quite good-looking. That man didn't see her, but she did. Earlier, she was standing behind the butler and drew a tortoise on his back. At noon, Shi Shang saw the woman from last night. She was dressed in a very dignified manner and sat at the dining table to eat. And Su sat to her right, chatting with her. The woman's voice was soft and gentle, completely unlike the woman who had screamed and collapsed last night. Shi Shang floated over to them. When Ansu saw her, her expression changed. Recently, I've been here all the time, and there's no one to talk to me. Thanks to this rain, Missen can accompany me here to relieve my boredom. Missen? Why did his face suddenly turn so ugly? Are you feeling unwell? Ansu regained her senses and hurriedly shook her head. It's nothing. Maybe it's just a bit cold. The woman looked outside and nodded in agreement. It is a little cold. I still have some new clothes that I haven't worn. If Missen doesn't mind, please make do with them. Why would I dislike it? And Sue glanced at the Shi Shang out of the corner of her eye as she spoke to the woman. She watched as Shi Shang reached out and picked up the fork from the table. She kept blinking at her, but Shi Shang didn't seem to see it and moved the fork in the woman's direction. As soon as the woman retracted her gaze, she saw the fork on the table move over out of thin air. Ah! The woman stood up abruptly, causing her chair to topple to the ground. She retreated with a terrified expression. Don't look for me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Mrs. Chi, and Sue called out. The woman seemed to be frightened. She turned around and ran upstairs. The servants who had rushed over hurriedly chased after her. Missen, what happened? The old man asked Ansu politely, but there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Ansu reflexively looked at Shi Shang. Shi Shang was still sitting in his previous seat, but he had already put down his fork. Missen. The old man followed Ansu's gaze, but it was empty. There was nothing there. Just now, I was chatting with Mrs. Chi. I don't know what she saw, but she suddenly screamed. Ansu hid the fact that Shi Shang had scared Mrs. Chi. Although she didn't know why she did that, she felt that she didn't want to harm Mrs. Chi. After the old man comforted Ansu and went upstairs, Shi Shang stood up. As he passed by Ansu, he said, If you don't do anything wrong, you don't need to be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. Ansu really wanted to retort, Isn't she a ghost? Mrs. Chi didn't offend her, so why did she scare her? But Ansu didn't have the guts to ask. She went upstairs alone, Shi Shang's words echoing in her mind. After entering the room, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. The chill spread from her spine to her scalp, causing her hair to stand on end. She couldn't help but shiver. Her surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. It was as if she had been isolated in another dimension. There seemed to be a pair of cold hands slowly moving up from her back, her shoulders, her neck. Nailan Ing, stop playing around. Ansu thought it was Nailan Ing. No one responded. An ice-cold hand grabbed her by the neck. It's not Nailan Ing. These words flashed through Ansu's mind, but it was too late. Her neck was violently choked, cutting off air from entering her lungs. Her back was pressed against an ice-cold, hard object. Ansu struggled violently, but the person behind her was too strong. She couldn't break free. Ansu was extremely cold. The suffocating pain caused her eyes to become bloodshot, and her vision gradually blurred. Feng Jin. I don't want to eat this. In a daze, Ansu heard Shi Shang's voice. Then, she fainted. When she woke up again, not only was Shi Shang there, but the butler and the man called Feng Jin were also there. Missen, you're awake? The old man quickly handed her a glass of water. He asked in confusion, Missen, why did you faint in your room? Ansu opened her mouth. She looked at Shi Shang, who was floating at the foot of her bed. I might have met a ghost, she stammered. The person who was choking her was definitely a ghost. But she was sure that it wasn't the female ghost floating in front of her. That ghost had a very strange smell. The old man's expression instantly changed. His tone became stern. "Miss Anne, don't speak nonsense. How could we have ghosts here?" "Uncle Butler, to be honest, I have the yin-yang eye. I can see ghosts." And Sue smiled bitterly. If possible, she didn't want this ability. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. If she couldn't see, she wouldn't be like this now. She wouldn't be living in fear every day, afraid that a ghost would appear behind her if she turned around. She didn't know if the old man was shocked by this news or something else, but he froze and stared at Sue. For a long time, he didn't react. Jayagan Jayagan. Chapter 219. And Sue told them that she'd come here on someone else's request. And that person turned out to be Chi Mo's daughter. The old man confirmed that Chi Mo did indeed have a daughter who went to the same school as Sue. She came back once 10 days ago, but there was no news of her after that. But Sue told them that Qin Yen had died 7 days ago. Because she had the yin-yang eye, she could see Qin Yen. Qin Yen had asked her to come back and save her father. Qin Yen was a bit of a loner and didn't have a good relationship with her family. The contact details she filled in at school were all wrong. When they asked her classmates, they didn't know anything about Qin Yen's family. They searched for Qin Yen's residence according to the information she filled in when she enrolled, but the place was being rebuilt and they couldn't find her at all. So no one here knew that Qin Yen had been dead for 7 days. Qin Yen was the one who told her about this place. But because she wasn't familiar with the place, she only found it in the middle of the night. The old man immediately called the school. The information he got back was similar to what Sue had told him. The old man seemed to have been drained of all strength as he slumped to the ground. Sir had become like this, and young Miss was gone. And Sue looked at the old man apologetically. "I'm sorry, Uncle Butler. I was afraid that you wouldn't believe me if I told you directly, so I found an excuse." The old man's cloudy eyes filled with tears, and he suddenly started sobbing. He'd watched young Miss grow up. How could she be gone just like that? And Sue didn't know what to do. She got up and helped the old man up. "Uncle Butler, don't be like this. Qin Yen's father still needs you. I promised her that I'd save her father." "Did you see who attacked you?" Feng Jin ignored the old man who was crying like a child and stared gloomily at Sue. And Sue helped the old man to a chair and sighed. "I don't know. I didn't see clearly. Aside from being able to see ghosts, she only knew a few simple spells. She knew that she was trying to show off, but she really couldn't refuse Qin Yen's last request." "I'm hungry," Shi Shang suddenly spoke up. She had been hungry since just now. "Don't you know how scary it is when a ghost is hungry? Why are you dawdling?" Feng Jin glanced at her, then lowered his eyes and walked out the door. "Do you think it's a human or a ghost?" Shi Shang caught up with Feng Jin. Without waiting for Feng Jin's reply, he rubbed his chin and commented, "The Qi family sure has a lot of fun." "Nailan Ing is coming," Feng Jin blurted out. Shi Shang reflexively replied, "Since Sue is here, of course he has to come. If he didn't come, how could he share life and death with the female lead? How could he have sex with the female lead?" It took her a while to realize what Feng Jin meant. Her smile widened. "If Nailan Ing is here, it'll be even more fun." Feng Jin looked at her without batting an eyelid. Sure enough, she knew something. However, ever since she entered the villa, she had always been under his nose. She only went out for a walk in the afternoon. But last night, she seemed to know something. If he had known earlier, he would not have brought her along. Perhaps it was because Sue and Qin Yen were classmates, and because Qin Yen had entrusted her with the task, the housekeeper told her everything he knew. Now, Sue could openly look around the villa. When she arrived at Mrs. Qi's room, she saw Shi Shang floating into Mrs. Qi's room. Then, a scream rang out from inside. The sound was so loud that it almost broke Sue's eardrums. She quickly ran to the door and pushed it open. Mrs. Chi had fallen in front of the makeup mirror. There were a few blood stains on the mirror. After Sue went in, Shi Shang calmly wiped away the bloodstains and calmly floated out of the room. "Why did you scare her?" Sue suddenly reached out and grabbed Shi Shang. Shi Shang looked strangely at the hand Sue was holding. It felt a little warm, but he didn't feel anything else. That was fun. Shi Shang pulled his hand back and thoughtfully touched the spot Sue had touched. Sue's mouth twitched. Did he scare her because he thought it was fun? Just as Sue was about to say something, the servants who had heard the commotion rushed over. Shi Shang took the opportunity to float out of the room. She went straight back to her room. Feng Jin was still in the same position she had been in when she left. Shi Shang lingered at the door for a few seconds. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he floated toward Feng Jin. Feng Jin looked up. A white figure flashed in front of him, and he felt a cold touch on his wrist. Shi Shang endured the searing pain and quickly gathered what little spiritual energy he had left on his fingertips. But before he could send it into Feng Jin's body, he was repelled by a force. Feng Jin looked at her with a dark expression. What was she trying to do just now? Kill him? Shi Shang clutched his numb hand and crawled to his feet. Anger rose in his chest, but he swallowed it back down in the end. If it were her, she would have slashed someone who touched her without warning. She glared at Feng Jin. If I wanted to kill you, why would I go through so much trouble? Besides, we have a contract. If you die, I die too. I'm not that stupid. Feng Jin's tense body relaxed at Shi Shang's words. Why do you have to touch me? You don't even care if I get hurt. Why can't I? Would it break or make me pregnant? You're a ghost. So what if I'm a ghost? Do ghosts have no ghost rights? Are you discriminating against me? Shi Shang was furious. Feng Jin was silent for a moment. His Adam's apple bobbed a few times before he finally said, "Humans and ghosts can't be together." Shi Shang, I just want to confirm if you're Feng Ci or not. You're sick in the head. Feng Jin watched as Shi Shang rolled her eyes at him. Her eyes were filled with disdain and disdain. Then, she covered her hand and floated out of the room. Feng Jin. Wasn't that what she meant? If that wasn't what she meant, why did she keep wanting to touch him? After that, Feng Jin never saw Shi Shang again. He could only use the ghost contract to sense her location. She was still in the villa. But before he could find her, Sue went missing. Mrs. Chi also went missing at the same time. No one noticed when they went missing. He went to call them for dinner, but there was no one in either room. He searched the entire villa but couldn't find them. It was still raining outside. With such heavy rain, they couldn't have gone out. At the same time, in the basement, Sue was tied to a chair. Shi Shang floated next to her with a gloating expression. How do you feel? Sue was speechless. How did I end up here? She was originally with Mrs. Chi, but she fainted for some reason. When she woke up, she saw a female ghost floating next to her, gloating over her misfortune. For some reason, Sue didn't feel afraid when she saw her here. Someone kidnapped you, of course. How else could you be here? It's not like I can teleport you here. Shi Shang's smile was as annoying as it could get. Sue was speechless. Looking at her, she even suspected that she was the one who kidnapped her here. But she didn't suspect her. Even Sue herself found it strange. *Jegan pleading for votes. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.